The story begins by asking if we believe in destiny. Then, in the next moment, it shows a woman face to face with death. Everyone there is fleeing from the monster, but they realize there is no way out. So, they decide to hide behind rocks. A little girl prays not to be found by that sinister creature. Even so, the long-necked monster appears in front of her, ready to take a bite. Another one for Vasco. Our hero, unfortunately, can only watch because he is at the beginning and still a coward. So, he will try to survive 5 minutes to level up. But that is not an easy task. We discover that his name is Jiangkai and that the land became this way after 2 planets called demon stars appeared orbiting nearby. Due to the appearance of those, the plants and animals of the earth began to turn into monsters, and human technology was unable to prevent the destruction that would be caused. A large part of the population, during that period, began to be wiped out, but the humans who were saved managed to find mysterious portals. And it's the whole story that everyone knows. They return stronger and make money. But returning to our hero, we see that he might become a pancake before becoming a hunter. After eliminating everyone, only the MC is left to zero out the HP. But he won't let himself be defeated so easily, since his family had to work twice as hard as they already had to send him to the Demon Star. He knows he cannot let things end that way, as all the money saved by his family would be in vain. But while he was thinking, the monster didn't wait a second, throwing its spear towards our hero. Realizing this, he prepares to run towards the cliff and jump. As he fell, the monster tried to grab him in any way, but the system appeared congratulating him for completing the necessary objectives. Even after jumping off the cliff, he finds himself alive, complaining of pain. Slowly, he gets up and realizes that all his wounds have been healed. In the sky, a blue sphere begins to open, and the system notifies him that a goddess has healed him. The protagonist asks the girl if she is a deity, but receives no answer. And the system appears, notifying that the 2x multiplier is activated and there is a 1% chance that the super multiplier will also be activated. And when that happens, he will receive 10 times the programmed reward or penalty. So overall, he activates the multiplier and gains an extra ability. Jiang then feels happy, as while normal people receive only 1, he, in turn, received 2. His profession is defined as gambler, and his critical damage power has increased. He received 36 attribute points to distribute as he wishes. He feels happy, as the norm is to receive less. Due to the multiplier, he knows that by gaining 10 points, he will actually gain 20 and will jump 2 levels. Moreover, he can deal a critical damage of 20,000%, even with a 0.1% chance. However, he prepares for the future, wanting to increase those chances to a higher level. With that resolved in a new power, our hero will use the weapon that the demon beast used to earn more money. Taking the object, he doesn't care how weak his profession is, everything can change. And he comments that he didn't expect to gain a hidden power and a secret profession. With that, the system appears again asking him to complete another mission called Path to the Glorious City. The system shows a map with the location of where our hero is and where he must go. Despite having completed his initial objective, he knows it will be extremely difficult to reach this city, as it is surrounded by monsters. As soon as he speaks, suddenly, a roar begins to echo in that forest, and he hides in fear. A giant snake is fighting with a young man who is asking for someone's help. In question, the young man asks the snake not to come closer, as he has a phobia. Meanwhile, our hero continues hiding behind the tree, just observing. But the MC prepares to help Shuzi and tells him not to worry. Worried about the protagonist's appearance, Shu asks him to leave. But our hero doesn't want to hear any of it, as he feels stronger than before and throws his spear at the snake. The enemy is lifeless, and our hero comments that this was expected, as he used the muscular one as a distraction. There are still more of them starting to appear in our hero's field of vision. They realize this and worry that the snakes are coming closer and closer. While our hero was thinking about what to do, the man took the opportunity to hug him, saying he had never seen anything like it. Recovering from the hug, the MC explains to the young man that, by completing his task, he managed to change professions, gaining new skills. Shuzi, not wanting to be left behind, says he doesn't quite understand this and mentions that his profession isn't all that bad. It is explained that, on that planet, there is no way to know how many skills or professions a person can gain. It all depends on how they go about things. It is also explained that poor people cannot buy materials or even make profession swaps that would give them advantages, as it is expensive to do so. The young man's profession interests our hero, who asks how he managed it, and the man replies that it will be a long story. With that, they begin to collect the items from their enemies that were left along the way, wanting to trade them for money. All those items they picked up transform into cards to be stored in the inventory. However, while they were gathering the items, a girl appears calling for them, and they become startled, as they do not know her. She introduces herself as Sunwon and says she is having difficulty passing the initial test. She asks if she could form a group with them, and they respond that no, as they do not know her. She explains that her ability is useless in battle, but she can heal people, and for that reason, she asks not to be left alone. Crying, she warns that she can also transfer powers to their weapons, making them stronger. They are tempted to let the girl join, as she can do quite a bit. Our MC thinks carefully, as in this initial phase they find themselves in, they will need a lot of help to move forward. With no other option, they introduce themselves and agree to let the girl in. To lighten the mood, Jui makes a joke, saying that our hero only let her in because of her appearance. We briefly shift to another location in the city of Jiangzhou, at Portal 18. In the research laboratory, an old man comments that it is easy to find people due to the bracelets they distribute. Su Lulan, the inspector of the initial test, appears saying that of course, because the more expensive the bracelet, the better the accuracy of the object. The scientist replies that, based on the GPS location, many of the people have already been eliminated. He starts looking into Lulan's sister, and ends up saying that she is forming a group with 2 other people. The inspector calls her sister a coward, criticizing her for having warned her not to form a group with others. The reason is that the more people gathered in one place, the more dangerous monsters will start to appear. Sure enough, a monster with a human face appears behind them. We return to the laboratory, where we learn that 2 more have appeared as well. Sululan knows this is not good news, as those monsters are strong enough to take out a good portion of the newcomers. It is also explained that their incapacitation in that reality does not harm their bodies on Earth, but causes mental pain. This problem arises because their incapacitation in that world is as if it were in reality, causing extremely strong issues in their psychology. While the inspector warns that she will head to the location, wanting to save those 3, the scientist asks her to wait, as those 3 are not in trouble. Most of those creatures have already been defeated, but going back 3 minutes, those creatures were chasing the 3 fools. Noticing that 2 of his friends in the group would be caught, our hero turns back to face those creatures, telling them to go first. Zuzu then starts to cry, asking why, and our hero tells him to go quickly. In truth, the MC just wants to test his strength, using those creatures as a punching bag. So, jumping, he delivers an extremely powerful blow to the creature's chest. Thinking the result would be positive, he ends up getting distracted for a few seconds when, out of nowhere, that creature's hand throws him away. While he was down, he realizes he cannot finish this with just 1 blow. He prepares himself, as he is surrounded by those creatures. Despite this, he has not given up. The girl is the only brave one in the group, as she asks to go back and save the MC, and for some reason, Zuzu ends up having an existential crisis. Back in the normal world, Jui's mother asks the man why he gave her son the advanced class material. Even though her boy seems strong and big, he is actually shy, and she questions why the young man did that. He explains that, indeed, the son, despite being more fearful, is also the person with the most potential to overcome his fears. Now back on the demonic planet, there was the muscular one facing his fears. Then, he questions our hero about the reason he was protected back then when he was in danger. Kai responds that they are brothers and, therefore, must walk side by side together while they eliminate the creatures. Still, our hero wants to know how his friend manages to defeat the human-faced beasts with just 1 punch. He wonders if this might be due to the boy's profession. The girl takes the opportunity to heal our hero while she still has time. Kai asks the girl to go hide, as she might get caught in one of the attacks. She remembers when her father passed away, as there was no one to help him since everyone was defeated. Then, she says that no matter the situation she is in, she will not leave her friends needing help to escape. Our hero begins to feel the effects of Sun Nanan's healing. He stands up, impressed by the girl's courage and ready to fight again. But still, he knows that even though the 3 of them are fighting together, it will not be enough to defeat those creatures. To defeat those things, he will use the girl to extract the venom from the snakes and imbue it into his weapons, having a greater effect. Handing over one of the snakes, he asks if she can heal and extract the venom at the same time. She replies that she will do her best. Our hero's weapon begins to change, gaining the power of poisoning. The plan so far has been successful, and his friend continues to fight without stopping. Magnificently, the girl is managing to control those 2 magical balloons perfectly. The 3 of them form the perfect combination. 1 heals, another tanks, and 1 deals damage. The girl then informs that the poisoning process on the sword is complete, and our hero is ready to attack. He then asks his friend to hold the creatures for a few more seconds. His friend responds that this is not a problem and delivers a powerful attack. Our hero jumps in to deliver the final blow to that creature. Those 3 fools did a perfect job, as they finally managed to defeat the creatures. They are happy that their teamwork has succeeded. Due to the group's chemistry, they gradually manage to defeat their opponents. Once again, they prepare to attack together while the inspector observes through the transmission what is happening, trying to understand how that weak group can take down each of those monsters, as she concludes that it might be due to the hero. Then, Sununu's sister questions how it is possible for someone to have a profession that cannot be found, asking if our protagonist is a good person. Finally, Prota's group managed to eliminate all those monsters, thus collecting items for sale. They celebrate their victory, despite the great fatigue they are feeling. Wanting to rush the quests, the healer advises them to finish the mission quickly. Juzi also thinks they should do that, but the hero warns that there is no reason to hurry. The reason not to rush to the end is that if they place among the top 3, they will earn rewards from the army. By defeating a good portion of their enemies, it will result in higher gains, as they have the skills for it. The other 2 then agree with what the MC is saying and, therefore, decide to do infinite farming. A few hours passed after they decided to farm. Juzi is surrounded by snakes, asking our hero if this method will really work. On a branch, our protagonist tells him not to be cowardly, as he has the profession of a martial artist and is also strong. Moreover, they have a healer on the team to help them at any moment. As things work this way, the boy gathers courage to finish off his opponents again. In addition to the protagonist, Kai is also helping him with the remaining ones, and by defeating those snakes, he finally reached level 10. He knows that, due to the rules of the demonic planet, only he will gain the experience, as he is the only one with the fighting skill. For his group, it was left only to choose to let him wipe out the monster race, and then let him level up first. After a hard day of infinite farming, Kai finally managed to hit 100 in experience, leveling up his skill and also activating double XP. He celebrates, as after a day of farming, he managed to level up. His friends approach him and congratulate him, asking what he will do with the attributes. Then, our hero explains that, due to leveling up, he gained 20 attribute points, accumulating with his other 56. For some reason, his friends, upon hearing this, become frightened, as it is not common for someone to have so many attribute points. While the muscular one has 26 attribute points, the healer girl has only 12, being the only one with less. Trying to make it more understandable for both, our hero explains that this is due to his profession, which allows him to receive double the reward. Sunwon congratulates the protagonist, saying that despite the risks of his profession, it is also good. Meanwhile, Shuzi tries to think of a way to improve his martial arts. However, while they were talking, the previous portal begins to open again. The same goddess as before appears in the location to talk to our hero. With the arrival of the deity, our hero now has another skill obtained by reaching level 2. The healer and the muscular one are impressed with our hero's abilities, as this is not normal. One of the rewards given to our hero by the deity was the ghost hand. It allows the item to be thrown, having 20% penetration. However, if the user throws an item card, except for those for sale, its power will be increased by 200%. Along with an increase in magic consumption. One of the other skills gained was the concentration of the ghost eye. It allows for an increase in visual range and tracking ability. Our hero is happy with the skills gained but comments that he still doesn't know how to use them, even though his profession is extremely suitable for him. 2 days later, the protagonist group is getting stronger. The scientist approaches the inspector and says it is satisfying to see that her sister is alive. This makes her extremely angry as she questions what he is trying to say with that. Despite the young man's words, she sets that aside, commenting that with our hero in the group, they have some chance of survival. As she spoke, someone with heavy footsteps appeared in the area. A guard appears, telling them to stay alert, as the training for the newcomers will become more dangerous. This completely frightens the team of scientists. Someone in the background says that this problem only occurred because people from other countries invaded the training area of the newcomers. It is then revealed that the person who gave the orders is Wei Yang, the supreme commander of that nation, and he asks everyone to prepare. The inspector, frightened, asks if he is serious, and he rudely replies that if it were a lie, he wouldn't have any reason to be there. The reason she is anxious is that the people from this country can hinder the development of other countries. Basically, they have the ability to enter advanced areas and thus wipe out the newcomers who are trying to advance in the test. Moreover, they use their skills and training to torture and corrupt the newcomers. It is explained that their goal is simply to make these newcomers who went for training give up and never enter the demonic planet again. She gets angry and slams the table. As her sister is in that dangerous place and is still weak, it will not be possible to resist those dangerous guys. The commander asks everyone to prepare for psychological counseling, as this time there may not be any newcomers left. The hero's group walks through the forest, aiming to find more monsters. It is when, suddenly, they hear something coming from behind him. Shuzi turns around and wonders what is wrong, when suddenly, our hero draws his weapon, saying that there is something there that worries him in a certain way. Still, The other two cannot understand, saying that it is obvious that there is nothing there. But Jiangkai refuses to accept his friend's words and then activates his tracking skill, observing and throwing his weapon towards what he saw. The power placed in his weapon is strong enough to destroy everything in its path until it finally hits something. He then warns that he will get closer, calling his companions to come along. Upon arriving there, they observe that our hero was right. There was a spiky boar that ended up being defeated by our hero, giving him good XP. They are impressed with our hero's eye skill for being able to see something so far away. The girl comments that all this happened while our hero is still at level 2. Imagine when he is above 2 digits. Our hero does not want to brag and therefore says that it is only like this due to his skill. While he was retrieving his weapon from the creature, the system appears and asks if he would like to collect the items that the spiky boar will leave, and he accepts. He is impressed with his powers. The ghost hand can increase the damage of his thrown objects, and the demonic gaze allows him to see everything in slow motion. So, inform your group that by defeating that enemy, you managed to level up to level 3, and therefore, they should go look for more monsters to defeat. While the MC's group was talking, an unknown person in the shadows warns that their captain is very lucky because he has strong people with him. It is finally revealed that those people are from Country L, who invaded that world to terrorize the lives of the newcomers. Realizing that those humans would not be very friendly, Kai steps forward and asks who they are. One of the guys starts to draw his katana, telling them not to be afraid, as they are not bad people. A few more people also come out from where they were hiding, saying they came to play with them. Jiang and his friends, who had already been surrounded by the enemies, see another one emerging from the water, saying that their boss has only one goal this time. The masked figure appears, stating that his goal is to make all the newcomers feel pain. However, upon recognizing who that person is, the healer warns about the danger they will bring to their group. Still not understanding, the MC asks her for a better explanation, but the girl responds that there is no time for that. The number of enemies is large, and our hero is scared. As one enemy there is level 5. He knows he can handle those enemies up to level 4. However, regarding level 5, there is not much he can do. The commander of the enemy troop announces that the genocide must begin. Kai asks his friends to form a pair and flee to a distant place, buying time for them, and then they will meet again. They agree and leave, each heading in the opposite direction. The masked one asks his companions to follow the fugitives while the rest stay to help capture our hero. Meanwhile, Jiang entered the woods to escape. He travels along that path, with 2 of the henchmen ready to capture him as soon as he gets tired. But suddenly, he disappears, and the henchmen notice this, wondering where he could have gone. For a moment, the subordinates stop and ask if our MC wants to play hide and seek. While they were talking, out of nowhere, the protagonist's spear is thrown towards them. One then notices and prepares to stop his attack, saying that it is easy to defend against newcomers. What he did not expect was that our MC was strong enough to defeat him, and the other subordinate watches his friend being defeated by a simple spear. He looks back and asks why his friend flew so far away, and notices that the guy is happily lifeless from a blow. Then, that man wonders how such a thing is possible, while the MC observes from hiding. But he comes out and says that no matter how strong he is, our hero will defeat them. To check the protagonist's stats, the guy opens the system, questioning how it is possible for someone like him to take down his level 3 friend. Even he does not know, as our hero has 56 attribute points, while he, a level 3, has only 45. He was standing at the right spot for the protagonist, and he was thinking about how that was possible when suddenly, our hero attacks him. Standing in front of the bodies of his adversaries, he says that this was part of his plan, as he wanted to test his abilities. Again, that celestial deity appears to the protagonist, informing him that he will be able to loot the experience from the opponent. Then, it is explained that, due to the demise of those two, our hero can loot up to 100 XP from each one. He is happy to discover that he can take down people and receive more XP than if he took down monsters. Thus, he chooses to steal the 100 XP from each of those corpses, and the system then notifies him that he has finally leveled up to level 3. And picking up some items left by the deceased friends, he celebrates that he now has 76 attribute points, in addition to being at level 3. While the MC was doing well, Jue and Sun Nunun were struggling to stay alive. For these two, all they can do is listen and watch their adversaries mock their weakness. Unfortunately, they are surrounded, and the only one who can fight is down, with serious injuries. Using her powers, the pink-haired healer asks the muscular guy if he thinks Kai will come back to help, and he replies that yes. Fortunately, those two served as a distraction so that the MC could get closer without being noticed. The enemies were in a hurry and, therefore, decided to finish off those two quickly. However, they did not expect the Prota to emerge from the trees. His friends, upon seeing each of their adversaries on the ground, are impressed and happy to be alive. The leader orders the person who is taking down his subordinates to appear and fight him face to face. Little does he know, this will be the worst choice of his life. He still thinks that the person he is fighting is someone who received a way to cheat to be in the novice area. Therefore, he decides to flee. Sununan even notices the guy running away, but doesn't understand why. But for our MC, reasons are unnecessary, as he is filled with rage since his friends almost signed a contract with Vasco. Then, Kai throws his spear with more force and much more precision, hitting the young man squarely in the chest, who falls to the ground completely defeated. Thus, the protagonist appears and asks how Razanya is, and she replies that she is fine, but cannot say the same about her friend, the muscle guy. The poor guy is all bruised, but he is happy to see that his friend has returned to help them. Due to the severe injuries he has, he falls to the ground, asking his friends to move on without him. It was not supposed to end this way between them, but in the state the young man is in, it likely will. The poor girl cries, and our MC only feels the sadness of not being able to do anything to help his friend. In the moment of sadness between them, our hero throws a young man onto Kbam, finishing off his friend once and for all. However, Kai explains that by taking the life of an explorer, you gain XP, allowing you to gain extra life, in addition to your damage being healed. Then, they have a brief dialogue about what to do, but our hero asks his friend to deal some damage to the man quickly. Thus, only happiness remains in knowing that he will be able to do the same, while the captured one laments. Before doing what is necessary for them, they like to play an extremely healthy psychological game with their enemy's mind. In the laboratory of Country L, there is a panic among them due to the cruelty they have experienced, by irony of fate. An officer questions how such a feat is possible coming from the city of Xingyao, wondering if they have discovered a new profession that allows them to cheat. Now, in the Xingyao Research Center, they are also worried, as in the report sent by Nunan, they found the assassins of the mist. Moreover, the officer recalls that he warned them to prepare for the worst. However, the researcher says they misunderstood what he meant, as the report indicates that Nunan and his team are well and stronger than before. Thus, the words spoken frighten the two, who wonder how it was possible, questioning the fact that the enemies helped them level up. Then, that man responds by saying that she and her group defeated the enemies of Country L, leaving the officer in shock, who even dropped his tea and asked to see the data sent by the healer girl. Upon starting to look, he realizes that everyone is level 3, except for the MC, who has an unknown level. The inspector at the location responds by saying it is impossible for her sister and the martial artist to deal that much damage to someone, leaving only the MC. The gentleman says that his intuition suggests otherwise, but he cannot comprehend why Kai's level and profession are still unknown. With that, the optometrist responds that, according to the server, the reason is that the hero is using an ancient measuring artifact, thus complicating their ability to gather information. Additionally, the Supreme General finds all of this interesting and orders them to pursue information regarding the protagonist, wishing to see him soon. Putting all that talk aside, the guys take the opportunity to be happy for a moment, as they have gained new professions and skills. Possibly, the healer benefited the most, as she gained the ability to make people even stronger than they already were. And she also makes a good impression on our hero, who comments on being expected for this type of profession. Furthermore, the muscle guy takes the chance to ask if he is already strong, but Kai responds by saying that the guy is still level 3, while he himself is already level 4, which ends up scaring the muscular one, who gets angry for not leveling up enough. Moreover, the healer says it is impressive, as our hero has attribute points similar to those of level 8 people. As a good boy, he takes the opportunity to explain that, after defeating the weaker enemies and stealing their XP, he moved on to the higher level ones. Again, the muscle guy is angry for being weak, while Su takes the opportunity to ask what they will do now. Our MC responds that, while defeating one of the captains, he ended up discovering that there is another group of enemies to be defeated, and for that reason, they set out to hunt them down. After half the day has passed, the remaining clandestines were looking for more newcomers to toy with, while mocking the team that was completely torn apart. The captain of that team asks them to stop the games and focus on guarding, and again they scoff, saying that there is no one strong enough there. But there is someone strong enough to face them, and that person is hiding, analyzing the movements of the enemies. However, the muscular one questions whether our hero really wants to face 9 level 5 people. Kai responds that they shouldn't worry about that, as he is stronger now and can protect his team. Without giving his colleagues a chance to say anything about it, the MC charges forward, saying he needs to make the first strike. The captain notices someone approaching and warns his companions to be careful. One of the subordinates activates the system and sees that the person coming towards them is only level 4, and for that reason, another responds that they were lucky to find someone. The captain also comments that this discovery was incredible for his gang and immediately orders everyone to capture whoever is coming in their direction. However, the one who ends up being frustrated is the protagonist himself, who expected his enemies to break their attack formation after a few minutes of battle. Basically, his plan consisted of drawing the enemy's attention and making Kbum use his strongest move when the guys were distracted. And due to the formation that the clandestines use, Shu cannot attack incorrectly, but that will not stop our hero from finding a way to resolve this. Having finally found a solution to end this, one of them is to activate his power to the maximum level. So, upon activating his ability, he runs towards the opponents, who end up getting startled and asking why our hero is running towards them. As a good extra, the guy asks where our hero is running and if he even knows what he is doing, while launching an attack. Even injured, Jang Kai tries to get as close as possible to the guys to then deliver the attack that will help him win this battle. However, the guys further disrupt his plans, gathering all in one place. But that will not be enough to stop the protagonist. He manages to dodge all of them without being hit even once. Still, the extras ask what he is planning to do. They only question how a level 4 person can dodge all of them, who are level 5 and above. Meanwhile, the masked one pulls up the panel to see and talk to his captain, warning that something is wrong. Then, he informs his superior, saying that he couldn't make the initial detection of our hero's abilities. However, he managed to discover one of the attributes related to agility, and it revolves around 30, thus frightening the extra captain. In addition to him, the others are also impressed, as most have around 20 attribute points. With this, the enemy captain begins to think that something is wrong, as it is difficult for the state-of-the-art watch to mismeasure someone. So, he quickly orders his henchmen to leave there faster, as everyone has been deceived about who the protagonist is. Upon realizing he has been discovered, Kai calls them all idiots, as they found out too late to stop him, or even flee from him. It may be too late for him, but that man will try to escape from the protagonist at any cost. However, our hero responds, landing a blow and saying it is too late to do that. Once again, all that is left for Beta is to fall to the ground in pieces, as he is on a different level from our hero, compared to strength. Our Prota asks who the next extra is. However, he does not let his enemies respond and begins to attack all at once, with hatred and fury. Wherever he passes, he leaves all his enemies fallen and sighs in relief, as he managed to defeat them without getting hurt or having much trouble. While his friend asked what kind of caged beast that was, he simply observes the system notifying and congratulating him for reaching level 5. The healer is impressed with the MC's strength, but reminds him that in the initial test, only reaching level 5 is allowed. His muscular friend questions whether that is the allowed ceiling for everyone. Our hero responds nonchalantly, saying no, and that they should actually hurry to finish off the remaining extras. When asked what to do now, Junkie Guy responds that he will lead his group to have their turn to gain experiences and level up. Once everyone has gained enough points and leveled up, they will go for the final mission. The muscular one celebrates, along with the healer, as it will finally be their turn to become strong. Our hero comments to his group about being close enough to the finish line and therefore, they should gain plenty of experience points. However, they must be careful, as strong monsters appear when, suddenly, they hear something that frightens them. Some bodies of monsters with human faces were lying on the ground. The hero's group, hidden behind the trees, questions the injuries they are seeing. To find out more, our hero activates his magical eye ability, wanting to be sure of what he is dealing with, and ends up seeing golden lights. While they were distracted, something behind them started coming in their direction, emitting the same golden light that our hero had just seen. Suddenly, that light emitted an insane aura, frightening the healer and the muscular one. That golden ball begins to move, passing between our heroes and destroying a good part of their clothes, until it finally heads towards our MC. This scares them, as they see something completely different, so those two injured ask him to be careful. However, none of this really matters to the protagonist, as he ends up stopping that object with one hand. Holding the creature, he realizes it is Ratatovsk, that golden ball, causing the muscular one and the healer to question why it is so fast. Reading the situation, our protagonist makes a joke, saying that it is not fast enough and is also fat. Upon hearing this, Ratatovsk starts to fight with our hero, asking him to take back what he said. Wanting to prove he is right, the protagonist releases Ratatovsk, asking it to run again and try to attack him. Then, Ratatovsk takes advantage of this, asking if our hero is making fun of him. Then, he activates the supersonic blast again towards the protagonist. The muscular one gets scared, thinking our hero might get hurt. However, nothing happens, as Ratatovsk is captured once again. Again, the young man releases that rat, saying it is slow enough not to worry about any attacks. The rat attacks our hero more and more. However, it ends up being captured over and over again. Kai impresses the other two, until finally the little rat surrenders. The protagonist explains to his companions that, by capturing that rat, it will not run away anymore. Moreover, the MC will try to tame that rat to use it in battle. However, he does not know if this will be possible, but he feels relieved to have managed to get some monsters to level up, asking Huang to take care of them. However, she is standing still, analyzing the cuteness of the little rat. Kpum laments, as he does not know if his martial arts are as strong compared to the protagonists. When suddenly, someone among the trees starts to appear, saying that he finally found it after days of searching. That hooded man walks slowly down the clown stairs, until guards appear, welcoming him for completing the novice test. However, one of the guards laments, as there was another person who arrived at that place first, but he warns that the ranking does not matter, only the fact that he passed the test. However, the hooded one, with a strange demeanor, pushes the guard's hand away, saying he knows he was not the first to arrive there, but that it does not matter. Then, he starts taking out all the attack items he has from his inventory. The guards are perplexed, as they know it is possible to exchange undead cards for experience, and ask how he was able to kill so many monsters. It is at this moment that the young man finally reveals who he is. He introduces himself as the master of the Huang family, saying he is a member of the highest rank. His name is Huang Ye. This leaves the guards in shock, as they know that this young man's family is at the top of the city of Xinjiang. Moreover, one of the guards comments that he might be in the top 10 among all in the test. Huang Ye celebrates, saying that this day will be marked in history, as he will take first place in the novice test. Then, he shows his true face, asserting that the entire demon planet will belong to him. Meanwhile, our hero and his group walk through the forest, trying to find more monsters to hunt. Something strange happens. They have been walking for quite some time, but they are not getting closer to the end. Our hero thinks that the reason they are not finding anything is that they are carrying the rat, which has a strange aura capable of driving the creatures away. However, while they were distracted, something starts growling in front of them. A monster with sharp, enormous paws appears, leaving our MC apprehensive. It was a pack of shadow wolves. Moreover, the pack leader is present, shocking the group with what could result from that battle. Thus, they consider surrendering. Kpum is the first to give in to fear, saying that no rookie had ever been able to defeat shadow wolves before. However, for the protagonist, this is not a reason to run with his tail between his legs. Still, he acknowledges that it will be extremely difficult for Jue and Su to fight. They only had to come up with a plan for the two to escape first while he would stay behind to fight the wolves. As Kai runs toward the pack, he asks his group to work together to survive. Kpum is the first to use one of his ground attacks to delay the wolves. This attack allows the MC to advance through the creatures without taking any damage. Then, he asks Sun Wan to use her ability to add poison to her sword so he can fight. Our hero throws his spear in hopes that his attack will succeed, but the wolf manages to repel it, causing no damage to him. This astonishes the three, especially our hero, who questions why his spear did not penetrate the wolf. Thus, the pack leader growls, causing all the other monsters to charge at the protagonist's group. While Su and Kpum do everything to survive, they end up asking Kai if there is another way to win this battle. But while fighting the leader, the MC knows he cannot simply get past that defense when he accidentally wakes up Ratatowski. First, he tries to understand what is happening when he realizes that the wolves are to blame for waking him up. While the boy does everything to survive, the little mouse becomes extremely irritated, unleashing its fury and attacking those creatures. Wherever it goes, a bite is left behind, and that is when Kai realizes that the little mouse has caused damage to the pack leader. Then, he activates his ocular power to make sure of what he is seeing. Once he confirms that the attack worked, he feels happy because now there is a way to deal damage. Thus, he prepares to attack again, knowing that the perfect defense is not so perfect after all. Then, he charges at the wolves, attacking all while throwing needles to cause even more damage. Again, he feels happy because, as he thought, attacks in this manner would yield results. However, he knows he cannot keep his power activated for too long. So, to finish everything at once, he raises his strength level even higher, which astonishes his companions, as Kai will be able to defeat the Wolf King. Thus, the system appears and congratulates our hero for defeating such a strong creature in the training area. After the calculations, it concludes that this was expected, as he dealt enough damage to score a critical hit. Moreover, after the defeat of the pack leader, the remaining wolves begin to retreat gradually. But defeating one is not enough, so he asks his friends if they can handle another round of little wolves, to which they respond affirmatively. Then, charging at what remains, he warns that it will be easier this time since the strongest among them has been defeated. With that, Kpum asks Kai not to let any of those monsters escape, given everything they have been through in those few minutes of agony. The fight with the wolves continues. All the heroes there prepare to give their best. While some cast spells, others engage in physical aggression. While our hero does the same, they finally celebrate after defeating all the remaining wolves. because, in addition, they also managed to defeat the boss of the novice area. Thus, the protagonist asked them to go and finish off the remaining creatures quickly. He left them with few lives so they could level up. Soon, the next step they must take is toward the finish line. There, they are surprised by how beautiful the place is. Suddenly, Ratatovsky starts to flee from them. The healer warns, but our hero responds that it is fine since the animal is free. At the reception of the place, a guard appears congratulating them for passing the test. He informs them that all the people who completed the test are present there. Additionally, Kai asks when they will be able to see their ranking position. Suddenly, the same guy who had arrived in first place appears laughing, saying it is a tremendous coincidence since that man's sister is part of his family. He questions why the protagonist wants to see his ranking. Clearly, the MC changes his facial expression, saying he did not expect him to be there. So, the envious one says he will show our hero who is in first place in the ranking. A background character appears along with the ranking, questioning why a bunch of losers would want to know what position they finished in. Remembering everything his sister went through working in the house of that despicable being, our hero gets angry. He also recalls all the humiliation his older brother endured so he could save money. Kbum, upon hearing those words, gets angry and will try to defend his friend. However, our hero, being a good person, apologizes and warns that soon they will see with their own eyes that those three fools will be in first place. The protagonist's words echoed in the heads of the background characters, but not out of fear, rather out of laughter, asking if he was crazy to think he was in first. As he communicates with the three, our hero says he didn't expect they would have to do this, but since the occasion calls for it, he asks his friends to show everything they collected, thus revealing everything in the inventory of the three. What was once a source of laughter now becomes a source of fear, as they are perplexed by the number of monsters they have defeated. In addition to, obviously, having a final boss in their inventory, questioning how they were capable of that. Not wanting to be left out, Huang Yi says this is nothing but a joke from losers, questioning how they could defeat a Dark Wolf King. Our hero just laughs and asks them to look at the ranking again. Then, the ranking is updated again, showing the people who are in first place. There are the three fools who until now had been mocked. Obviously, it wouldn't end there, as our hero asks the security guard to count the number of invaders from country L they have defeated. This frightens both the guard and the background characters, as they cannot believe they have defeated invaders, causing Hanjai to question the methods. To belittle the boy's achievement, the envious one asks the background characters if at any point they happen to see any invaders. Then, he informs the local security that, as he can see, no one besides those three had seen anyone who could cause harm and asks for a review. Everyone starts shouting, thus influencing the boy's decision. However, someone in the back appears asking them not to worry. The person who just spoke is Lin Hunin, the commander of the city. He says it is a surprise even for him, as he did not expect this to happen. Thus, he completely frightens all the background characters present, as the one speaking is an official. As he approaches the MC, he informs him about the rewards he will receive for defeating the enemies of Country L. He informs that, originally, everyone who comes in first place receives rewards from A to B. However, Jiangkai will receive a level S reward. His friends are happy to realize they have won in the end, but those who did not like this at all were the background characters, who begin to get irritated again by this fact. Who would be even angrier would be Huang, who starts biting his lips, his veins bulging, saying it is impossible for him to have lost first place. To belittle him, our hero comments on the fact that he belongs to an important family, unlike the protagonist. This further irritates our protagonist, who asks if it is not enough for him to hear it from an official. Then, Huang begins to conjure his magic. Behind him, the security guard tries to stop him, but it is futile, as he charges forward, even insulting the MC's sick brother. Unfortunately for the envious one, there is nothing left but defeat, as he has just put his hand in a hornet's nest. He charges forward, holding his little sword, warning to be careful, as otherwise he will end up with the protagonist's sister. For him, there is nothing left, as he was completely struck by Kai, who landed a precise blow in the middle of the boy's chest. However, some who were present at the scene begin to question Huang's audacity, as he belongs to one of the best guilds in the country. Wounded and sitting on the ground, trembling all over, he asks how the protagonist dares to attack him without knowing about his relevance to the world. Our hero responds by saying he doesn't care and that if he speaks about his family again, the consequences will be worse. Our hero walks towards him, saying that for him, his family is the most important thing, and anyone who speaks or touches them will suffer consequences. Everyone stands still, doing nothing, just watching what Kai is about to do. No matter who or what, everyone will suffer the same way. He then plunges that spear into the boy's chest, completely ending his life. The system notifies that he received only 6 experience points. He ends up mocking, as the fact is that the guy belongs to a large family and, even so, is useless enough not to have enough experience points. Quickly, everyone present, upon witnessing this scene, is shocked and begins to shout about the act they just witnessed. June, who was just watching without doing anything, says that this was expected from the protagonist, even though his act was a bit reckless. Then, this time, to put an end to the matter, he says that, as everyone could see, Kai was just defending himself, as it was Huang who started it. He then calls our protagonist so they can go collect their rewards. After waiting for a while, June apologizes and says that, because his rewards were better, it took a little longer. Everyone starts to open their rewards, and a stone is handed to the healer. The redhead explains to the girl that this jade stone allows adding 15 points to psychic and mental. Moreover, Kbum is completely happy because he received armor that allows him to use his potential fully. It is explained that this black armor can add 16 points each to defense and strength, and will reduce damage by 16%. His friends, happy with their rewards, ask Kai to open his rewards so everyone can see. Upon opening, he is astonished by what he sees. They are daggers. However, it is not possible to access the information about the reward, as they need a special card for that. Thank God, Lu Jun has a rabbit and will give it to our hero so he can identify the daggers. The weapon our hero received is known as the Ninth Tribulation. It allows an increase of 9 in strength, as well as penetration and agility. Obviously, it also has a special effect, but unfortunately, the reward received by the protagonist is not as trivial as expected for an S rank. Thus, his friend asks if there is a possibility of exchanging the equipment for something better. Lu Jun replies that he can help, but Kai responds that it won't be necessary, as he would like to keep the reward he received. But fortunately, he already knew that this weapon had been made for him, because the damage he would take would be proportional to what he could cause, thanks to the special abilities. The problem is that his critical damage ability is quite low, but the Ninth Tribulation increases this by 10%. Since our hero liked what he received, he decided not to exchange it. Additionally, Nu Jun warns that, since the three of them completed the initial test, they can return to Earth if they want. He also says that soon someone will come after the protagonist, wishing him good luck and asking him to be careful when he returns home. Back in the city of Shenjiu, the hero rides calmly on his bicycle, happy with what he achieved on the demon planet. He can hardly wait to tell his brothers what happened. But when he gets close to home, he notices several luxury cars in front, finds it strange, but initially doesn't think much of it. Upon opening the door, he calls for his brother and asks him to guess what happened in the novice test. But looking at the sofa, he notices someone with an evil aura. Sitting there is Huang, who says, "After so long, someone finally showed up asking how the protagonist's test went." Our hero is startled to realize who it is and asks what that man is doing there. But there is no time to question. Someone attacks from behind, leaving him no chance to react. Holding the crazy stain, Huang asks if he knows what happened to Huang after what went down on the demon planet. Then, the man explains that his brother will be out of action for a month. But for our hero, the result will be permanent, because he intends to finish off the MC once and for all. Just as Kai was about to be hit, someone breaks down the door and defeats 2 thugs holding him, also hitting Huang. It was the commander, the same one from the research center, who appears behind the hero, saying that he had asked to be informed. "Be careful when you return." Accompanying the officer was Sun Wan's sister, who shows a paper with military information about Jiang Kai, which scares Huang. With a serious look, the Supreme Commander states that they only came there because they had matters to discuss with our hero. Meanwhile, Kai tries to recover from the beating he took and wonders why the officers are after him. After the appearance of the two, fortunately, the bald guy ends up being arrested and taken to the police station. Returning to the protagonist, he thanks for being saved, but, not understanding anything, asks why the two showed up. The commander replies for him to stay calm because everything has a reason. One of them is that the hero helped Sun Wan and Kbum perform well in training, and because of that, they were called to the army. Now, they came to do the same with him, since he gained a new profession. The girl explains that, on the demon planet, there are various professions, but many of them end up being weak. With Kai, it was different. By managing to change professions, he ended up getting one that is extremely powerful. For this reason, they ask if he would like to enter the military field and assure him that they will not force him into anything. But they also make it clear that they know about his family's situation, both his sisters and his sick brothers, and that they can offer help with that. Even knowing his siblings' condition, Kai tends to refuse because he thinks differently. He remembers that when new professions emerged, the military also showed interest, but in the end, they completely discarded the people. So, he questions what the military has done to help those who were left behind for starting with a good profession that ended up becoming bad. In the end, he thanks them for their help but reminds them that he cannot forget that the Huang family could also act against him. Even so, he reinforces that they are a family and have never trusted their fate in the hands of others, something that has never changed in his life. This makes the girl question, since the protagonist's new profession could bring hope for humanity. But he replies that he only wants to keep his family safe, away from any harm. Knowing the weight of the protagonist's words, the commander asks his subordinate to calm down. Then, he reminds Kai about the little time his older brother has left to live. For this reason, he proposes a bet. By the end of the month, the military will continue to protect his family from the Huang family. If Kai can gather enough money to pay for his brother's surgery, the general agrees that he will not have to join the army. But if he cannot, he will have to enlist, because then the military will cover his brother's treatment. Our hero smiles and promises that if the general wins, he will fulfill his part. Knowing he cannot stay idle due to the bet, he decides to return to the demon planet as soon as possible. He also thinks of a way to get his brother out of the house, as the place is no longer safe, needing to buy a new residence. Kai knows he cannot hesitate because now the work is harder, so he resolves to return to the training area for newcomers. And he realizes that to earn more money, he needs to join a guild, since most monsters are very powerful, and he cannot do this alone. Upon arriving at the establishment, he greets the attendant and asks to join a team, but the girl recognizes him and informs him that it is not possible. This is because his name is on a blacklist, as he attacked the Huang family, and because of that, he cannot join any group. Meanwhile, several teams gather ready for the hunt, and the hero can only lament not being able to join any, even after trying in various places. In the midst of his sadness, someone calls him from the back. It is Huang, a seer. She says she can point out the best place for him to hunt monsters and earn money, but this information costs $100. Our hero does not like being bothered and replies that he is an atheist, does not believe in that kind of thing, turning his back to continue on his way. The girl tries to insist, asking him not to leave and to listen to her offer. Upon hearing that it would be free, Kai turns back, overjoyed, saying that it is never too late to change his mind. Huang gets angry, realizing that he only returned because he heard the word free. Even so, she pulls out a kind of book from a portal and begins to cast her magic on it. Then, she reveals to the hero a crisis he will face in the future and warns that if he does not want to get involved in this, he should go to the Valley of Kings. In any case, the girl's words lingered in our hero's mind, because he knows that even with the Huang family wanting to harm him, they cannot act so easily. Still, he needs to take precautions. The most obvious choice for the Huang family would be to send soldiers to the Ash area. Kai also remembers the Victoria area, but that is only for those above level 15, so he knows he cannot go. Only the Valley of Angels remained, as perhaps the Huang family had not even thought of sending someone there. He decides to show what he is capable of in that area so that the Huang family never tries to mess with him again. Before leaving, he says goodbye to the girl, thanking her for the advice, which confuses her because she had told him to go accompanied by a group. But in the end, it's not her problem. All she hopes for is not to receive 5 negative reviews afterward. Some time passes, and we are already in the Valley of Angels. The protagonist walks calmly, marveling at the place, but he soon remembers that the monsters here are quite strong, and suddenly hears one of their screams. He prepares to attack. A group of extras is being attacked by a kind of gorilla. They are all struggling against the level 11 monster, with 172 strength. Even in distress, they do not give up and continue attacking. Our hero, in the background, just watches, wondering if he could defeat something like that. But that gorilla was not alone. Suddenly, its companions surround the protagonist. He manages to dodge and steps back a few paces. Kai opens the panel to check the stats. He sees that one gorilla is level 12, another is 13, and the strongest reaches level 14. Meanwhile, the extras celebrate having defeated one of the gorillas. The bald guy in armor comments to the commander that they are strong because, even at level 10, they managed to defeat a level 11 monster. But while he boasts, in the background, a much more intense battle is taking place. They are startled to realize that someone is fighting against 3 of those monsters, the same ones that almost finished them off. Our hero wonders if he accidentally entered their territory. Quickly, he asks if they are not going to help the guy who is fighting, but the captain responds by calling the group idiots, saying there is no way to face 3 of those creatures since they almost died just to defeat one. But for Jiang Kai, it doesn't matter if he is alone, in pairs, or in threes, he manages to take down one of the monsters while still boasting. This leaves everyone there stunned, as they just saw someone defeat a level 12 gorilla in a matter of seconds. Without wasting time, he changes the course of his run and charges at the other gorillas, who are caught off guard by the attacks. Result, another one is defeated. This time, he celebrates even more because he only used the 10% critical damage that his weapon has, without needing to activate anything extra. But there is still one left, and this last one is level 14, which makes the captain shout, asking if Jiang Kai can really finish off that beast. Holding 3 daggers of fate, Jian knows he is at his physical and mental limit. If he doesn't resolve this soon, he won't be able to move anymore. He throws the 3 weapons, which fly straight at the monster and hit their mark. It worked, and another enemy was defeated. With the situation resolved, there isn't much left to do. Our hero decides to go somewhere else. Now that he has 3 daggers from the monsters, he just jumps and leaves. The captain, who until then had only been watching and admiring, still tries to strike up a conversation and even create some kind of bond with him, but he also questions why no one went to help. But fate changes quickly. Already in Ash Plain, a group of people is gathered. One of them recognizes right away. They are soldiers from the Huang family. And worse, the seer is being held by the neck while they demand information about the hero. Frightened, she can only ask why on earth those humans want to know so much about someone like him. Since the girl wanted to know so much about why those men were after Kai, they explain that they are there because our hero attacked the Huang family. To get rid of those human monsters, she ends up warning that the MC is in the Valley of Kings and that they can find him there. Thus, they release her on the ground and send all the troops to head toward the location. Some allies of the Huang and Yang families comment that our hero is lost, as that group consists of enemies at level 20. But fortunately, the seer didn't truly reveal what will happen to them. She only warns that the meeting of those men with the protagonist will result in their deaths. Meanwhile, Kai celebrates having defeated a level 16 gorilla. Despite his strength increasing more and more, he worries because it is still too complicated to sell those cards. For now, the focus needs to be solely on paying the medical expenses for his brother. Distracted again, the protagonist is caught off guard. However, this time, instead of fighting, he is approached with a proposal, if he would like to join a team. These previously unknown individuals say they currently have 3 teams, all in search of the giant gorilla. And if the hero manages to defeat it, he can choose one of the treasure chests as a reward. But he responds that he has no team, that he is solo. Even so, the leader of that troop assures him that it's not a problem, as they only needed 1 person to complete the plan. Then, they all head toward the valley, where the gorillas are apparently gathered. The leader explains that all our hero needs to do is attract the attention of one of the gorillas guarding the entrance to the chest. Kai does not respond immediately. He knows that chest could bring useful rewards in the future, but he also wonders if it is really possible to handle this alone. And the doubts only increase when he remembers the team that asked him to join. They are too strange to trust blindly, and he knows that. Still, fleeing is not an option because that group will not let him escape so easily. So, by accepting the deal, everyone heads toward the monsters, including our hero, who will have the mission of attracting the attention of one of the most powerful. The leader is impressed with the protagonist's skills, but warns his group that, by the end of the battle, he will have 1 less team to command. The battle in the background continues to intensify. Running away, the protagonist knows that if he were just an ordinary guy, that gorilla would have taken him out a long time ago. But since it's him, no one can stop him. Then, he starts using every strong attack he has until he finally manages to defeat the level 15 gorilla. He is happy, thinking he will be able to take up part of the treasure, but unlike him, the rest are not as strong as they seem and are struggling. Kai comments that he didn't expect it to be so easy to reach the treasure room and that chests must have items worth a lot of money. But while he is distracted, a white liquid starts to drip down his shoulder. This liquid belongs to the final boss, which scares the hero and triggers the fight. This gorilla is completely different because, in addition to being level 20, he is also an earth elementalist. To complicate matters further, he is blocking the exit door, leaving Kai with no escape. And to make things worse, no attack causes damage because the gorilla has 23 defense points. This infuriates the protagonist, as to hurt this monster, he will have to repeat what he did with the Shadow Wolf King. With no time to think, the gorilla charges at him, throwing a rock that hits him squarely. The difference in attributes is clear, and this makes our hero consider the idea of playing the giant on the hill. But Jian knows he cannot give up because if he loses, he will face a punishment of a month without being able to enter to earn money. With no choice, he ends up falling asleep amidst the chaos, and has a flashback of when his brother helped him during one of the toughest moments of his life. These memories give him strength, and our hero begins to recover from exhaustion, avoiding being devoured. However, it is already too late because he ends up being swallowed by the monster, which is quite pleased. But the gorilla did not expect the hero to cut from the inside out, defeating the level 20 creature. In the end, he didn't need many tricks, just being digested and attacking from the inside out, breaking the defense, and claiming the treasure chest. Some time later, the henchmen of the hooded leader manage to defeat the gorillas and are going to divide the treasure. However, when they enter, they realize that the chest has already been looted, leaving the leader furious, wanting to know where it went. One of the subordinates says he saw the hero entering the cave but thought he was hallucinating because he didn't believe he would come out alive. Then the conflict begins among the extras, as somewhat payment, while others complain about the wasted time, planning everything. In the end, they realize they were made fools. One day after the escape, the protagonist finally prepares to see what is inside that chest. Upon opening the chest, the protagonist's eyes shine with joy, for inside there are as many monster cores as there are rare equipment he can wear. However, something different catches his attention even more, a pair of gloves he has never seen in his life. When equipping them, he realizes how powerful they are, giving him a slight upgrade in agility and strength. Wanting to test his new equipment, he throws the daggers into the void but notices they have a fiery power embedded in them. It is explained that, on the demon planet, there are various types of flames. Some are special, while others are quite common. This causes a certain disappointment, as he thinks the power of the gloves is useless. Soon, he is surrounded again by gorillas, this time all level 18. His bad luck is so great that these monsters only appeared because he decided to try out the gloves. He tries to repeat the same tactic he used against the local boss, but this time it doesn't work. The system notifies him that it is impossible to use that type of penetration, causing 0 damage. Surrounded on all sides, he has no choice but to flee, as the gorillas advance simultaneously. Suddenly, the creatures begin to catch fire in different parts of their bodies, making the hero think that the attack had worked. The small flame starts to spread, causing even more damage until all the gorillas are defeated. Thanks to the spreading flame, all the creatures were defeated. Meanwhile, the hero wonders how it is possible to deal 2000 damage. He quickly concludes that if his power deals 200 damage, that glove multiplies it by 10, allowing him to break through defenses. And if he can indeed deal 2000 damage per second, that equipment is practically divine for him. This makes it possible not to worry about the enemy's defenses. Later, someone became known as the God of Flame, as he defeated all the creatures in the area as if they were nothing. On the second day, the protagonist is happy, as he managed to level up the night before. He achieved upgrades in all attributes, and made the power of flames practically invincible at that moment. Additionally, as a reward, he received 10 treasure chests, making it clear that he still possesses the cards from the gorilla's corpses. However, something bothers him. He is not with his friends. All Jiang Kai wanted was to have his buddies nearby and know how they were doing in the army's training area. It is shown that Kbum is irritated because all the gorillas in the king's area have been defeated. The healer misses Kai because he helped overcome any trial, while the muscular one starts complaining again. But suddenly, the general appears, saying he is not there to listen to complaints but to train them and make them stronger. He then orders the two to regain consciousness and go back to searching for creatures. But nothing changes the fact that both continue to miss their friend. 3 days have passed, and some people are gathered, commenting that they can only find common black monkeys. One of them finds it strange how easily they order the killing of others as if it were nothing. He explains that days ago, he saw someone defeating 3 incredibly strong monsters as if it were nothing. But the information is downplayed, as they say those were low-level monsters, until the man shows a picture of the protagonist. The blonde-haired boy then responds that, coincidentally, it was precisely about him that they were talking. These 2 people are part of a group of assassins sent to defeat the protagonist, and ask them to stop joking around. The blonde tells them to go see for themselves what that man is capable of. This irritates the other, who does not believe that Kai is that strong, causing discomfort in the group that already knows it is not a good idea to profane his name. At a nearby camp, some people complain that they cannot find monsters to level up, while the hero is happy because he managed to gather money and level up. But the assassin group sent by the Huang family finds the hero, and shouts that they are there to end his life. All the extras recognize the group called Falcon, belonging to the Huang family, as one of the strongest teams controlled by them. For the protagonist, that is nothing. He simply asks why the Huang family sent them there. The leader responds that they are there because of what he did in the training area for newcomers and that they will not let what happened to Huang Ye, the family master, go unpunished. Quickly, everyone gets into battle position, ready to hunt the hero, who dodges an attack and remembers that it was Ye who started everything. The enemies respond that they do not care about right or wrong, they are just there to defeat the protagonist. The hero replies that if that is the case, he has no choice but to give them what they desire. He throws his flaming daggers at the group, but they barely dodge some attacks. The enemies mock him, saying he is throwing little flames that don't even deal damage. The extras comment that it is shameful to use that kind of power in a fight. But Jiang knows very well what that small flame is capable of and decides to just watch his enemies burn from their own selfishness and greed. But as we know, that was not just a small flame. It quickly begins to spread across the leader's body. In the end, there are no witnesses left to tell of the protagonist's deeds, as everyone starts to combust at the same time. However, some extras who were just watching remain alive and will be able to spread the story about the flaming god who walked over the bodies of his enemies. They are in shock and question who that person is, as the Falcon team had players of level 20 and above. Trying to gather more information, they can only see fragments, as the attributes do not appear due to the absurd value that the hero possesses. That is when they begin to call him the flaming god. Meanwhile, the protagonist walks calmly, as if nothing had happened, celebrating having leveled up 2 more times. Suddenly, the goddess of leveling appears, and everyone questions why she is there. She explains to the hero that, because of his attribute multiplier, no one outside can see how much he actually has, since the value is absurd. Our hero thinks this is good, as it means no one will know the real number of attributes, despite his level. He then heads towards the city of Xiangyao, where he informs the attendant that he wishes to sell his equipment. The woman greets him and welcomes him, but inside she is disappointed, believing she would only serve 1 customer that day. Kai asks for his equipment and collectible cards to be calculated. To that beautiful lady, the hero doesn't seem to have much profit, but she is soon surprised. He shows that he has several cards of the giant black monkey, not just 1, but many of them, in addition to treasure chests. The amount of items is so great that it obstructs the girl's view, and he even asks if she can see properly. Kai says he would like to sell all of that at once, which startles the attendant, as she knows that most hunters sell by piece and not in bulk. Still, the girl gets excited and assures the protagonist that she will do everything to calculate all the items as quickly as possible, as well as give him a greater profit. As she begins to do the calculations, they arrive at a total of 180,000 coins from the demon planet. She explains that all collectible monsters yield around 10,000, while treasure chests are worth about 170,000, which makes the protagonist happy, because with 180,000 coins from the demon planet, he will suddenly have 18 million coins in his real world, and that will be enough to cover his brother's treatment. Thus, the hero walks calmly through the city, as he will not need to join the army, in addition to covering all medical expenses. But while walking, his attention is drawn by a girl, the seer, who asks him to wait and talk to her quickly. He then stops and listens to what the girl has to say, first thanking him for his help and then asking to join the protagonist's team. But as a good solo player, he is not interested in groups and turns away, leaving the girl talking to herself. Quickly, she explains that, at first, the military found her power useful, but later discovered it was useless, leaving the girl alone and without anyone. Not knowing the protagonist's personality, she says she can give him her equipment for free, since all he wants is to receive items without effort. The protagonist questions why she no longer wants to return to the demon planet, and the girl replies that she does want to, but cannot because her ability is useless. She explains that, at first, the military thought her profession was powerful, and she rode the wave to reach level 20, but soon they discovered she was not suited for combat. She knows that if she returns to Earth, she will only have to work like a slave, but at least she will be able to survive on her savings. Kai understands the weight of those words, as his family also had to go through similar hardships. The girl further adds that she is the only one in her family capable of supporting everyone, being the final pillar, as she has younger siblings and cannot simply stop. These words echo in the protagonist's mind, reminding him of his older brother, who fought for him and his sister to have a better life. As a farewell, she says that if the hero wants, she can give him her power, but she needs to go to storage first. He introduces himself as Jiang Kai and says that if he meets her again, they will form a team next time, making the girl happy. Shaking and in disbelief, she asks if it's true, and the hero replies that he is a man of his word and never lies. So next time, they will make a lot of money together. Still crying, the girl says she believes his words, as he wouldn't swear something like that lightly, and then runs to hug him. Happy. Back on Earth, Kai is at home telling his siblings that they will never have to worry about money again. His sister, worried, asks if he is doing anything illegal to have that much money, but he explains that all the money he earned was on the demon planet, and besides, she will be going back to school. His brother is also concerned and asks if it was difficult during that time. Our hero replies that it wasn't, and he doesn't need to worry anymore. Therefore, the protagonist announces that from now on, they will have a good life. Thus, they toast to happiness. But while Kai was drinking tea, his phone starts ringing, and the general asks about the bet. The general warns that soon someone will come to the protagonist's house to take him so he can see something and not forget it. On the other side of the city of Shenjiao, a war is happening, and our hero can see the chaos that is pervasive in the area. Then, Commander Wei is asked why he called the protagonist there. But while they were talking, suddenly, a tremor occurs. A giant creature appears in the area, and all the soldiers prepare to fight against it. Wei explains that currently, the explorers of the demonic planet have a water divider, where each has 20 levels, divided into 6 stages. and those powers, for the most part, can only be used there. However, for people who manage to reach levels 81 to 120, they become individuals with extraordinary powers, undergoing a brief change that allows them to use their power on Earth. While the soldiers fight in the background, the commander explains that the power gained by those extraordinary individuals changed the course of history. For the struggle of humanity against the creatures of the demonic planet took a different turn, allowing them to resist for a longer time. Finally, the soldiers proclaim victory over that creature, and our hero celebrates, saying that they are strong. But quickly, the commander shatters expectations, saying that beast was just a common one among all the others. Moreover, to defeat those creatures, they had to sacrifice 2 extraordinary heroes, frightening our protagonist. Obviously, he explains that the fact that humanity is advancing a little does not mean that everything is fine, asking him not to forget the danger that will come. He also fulfills his promise not to let the Huang family touch him, or his brothers. The commander comments on the strange feeling he has been experiencing, as he has been paying a lot of attention to Kai over the days. His intuition tells him that soon the protagonist will become the strongest person to ever step in that city, and that they will soon need his help. Despite this, the commander knows that all the protagonist desires is to protect his family from the chaos. However, it is necessary for someone to rise up to fight and protect the people of the country from those monsters, and that if one day it becomes necessary, he will leave happily. He warns that he will not interfere with Kai's choices, but that if one day his city and country need his help, he should be able to assist. Then, a few days after the conversation with the commander, he returned to the demonic planet. He finds himself thinking about the conversation with Wei. In any case, he must soon forget about it, and be careful on the battlefield, as he will be looking for other monsters to hunt. The system explains that the ghost can only be defeated within a radius of 10 meters, making our hero wonder how he can inflict damage on it. In any case, this creature seems more difficult than the gorilla, and therefore, he must find people to join his team. While he was wandering around the area, he ends up finding who was waiting for him. He wakes the girl, saying he didn't expect her to wait for so long. She responds by saying that she indeed waited long enough and questions if he remembers his promise, to which he replies that he does. She then informs him that, in the meantime, she looked for more people to join the team, as she knew more people would be necessary to defeat the creatures. Our hero agrees, however, he refuses to accept that the profession is that of a drunkard. But unfortunately, what ends up happening is that one of those members is a drunkard, causing our hero to refuse to accept and run away. With that, the girl asks her captain to trust her choice. She informs him that Yu will work obediently. In any case, Kai was not willing to accept that the boy joined the team. However, upon hearing that he wouldn't have to share any rewards, he changes his mind and allows him to join. And that, from now on, they must follow their captain's lead and become a family. Then, the drunkard questions the protagonist's behavior, and the girl asks him to just ignore it, as the man only got in because he wanted nothing. Still in the Valley of Kings, however, this time in the house where the ghost is located, they prepare to fight against it, but first, they devise a plan. Our hero explains that the ghost is stronger than the gorillas and that they must be careful when exposed, as any loud noise will mean instant death. He also warns that only attacks within a radius of 10 meters can injure the banshee, so they must stay quiet and look for an opportunity to get close. But while he was explaining this, someone called him. He asks the girl to be quiet, but she doesn't understand anything, as she isn't making any noise. Looking around, he realizes where the noise is coming from. It's the drunkard who is saying he found something. At the same time, the ghost senses their location and moves in, desiring an intense battle. He then questions why the girl brought a drunkard into the group, as she claimed he would be extremely useful for defeating the monsters. However, she is lying on the ground, while the two must deal with the ghost's attack. As they are paralyzed by fear, they recognize the strength of that creature, and all that remains is to wait for the end to come. But while they are desperate and afraid, the drunkard wakes up, calling that creature beautiful and moving towards it. On top of the creature, Huang comments on how beautiful it is and that it should let him caress its skin, thus freeing his companions from their state of fear. Thanks to this, our hero will be able to use his ability to attack and resolve that problem quickly, before things change. While the protagonist explodes the ghost, the drunkard asks where his wife has gone. Kai and the seer celebrate defeating an elite monster in just seconds. But for the drunkard, this isn't good, as the MC had the courage to end his wife. He says she felt lonely and that there was no reason to do that to her. Whispering to each other, they talk about him being useful while drunk, but setting the conversation aside, the seer goes to get the chest. Still, the protagonist tries to understand how the guy wasn't affected by the banshee's attack and how he managed to fight against her. One reason might be that, by consuming alcohol, that profession has the ability to lose consciousness of their actions, thus having no fear of anything. He laughs, as he has found something important to him. Meanwhile, the seer returns with the treasure chest. Our protagonist laughs even more, saying that Huang is important for defeating the banshee ghosts. With a powerful weapon in their hands, they head to the other cabin, where there is another opponent. There, they wait for her to respawn so they can fight. The team captain orders that the young man attack the ghost in front of him. So it is done. He charges in, calling her his wife again, unaware of his actions, grabbing her and calling her beautiful. Our hero takes advantage of the situation to attack the ghost immediately, giving no chance for a counterattack. Like the other, the creature begins to catch fire, and the system notifies her demise. The poor Huang can't take it anymore, having his wife killed again by the protagonist, and he starts to complain while crying. However, none of this matters to the protagonist, and it is clear that they will only wait for his sobriety to attack other creatures again. The infinite farm doesn't stop, and 3 hours pass. The three are again attacking the banshee ghost, while Huang complains about what is happening to him. But for our hero, this doesn't matter, as all he desires is money. The poor drunkard suffers, as he has already had 35 wives taken from him. But for the protagonist, none of this matters. His focus is solely on profit. Moreover, the protagonist celebrates reaching level 14. Huang, with a broken heart, just listens to the plan those two have for how to use him. It doesn't stop there. In his thoughts, our hero comments on the skill cards he obtained in the cabin. One of them is the rain prayer, which can be used by people with strong mental power, and if the terrain is suitable, its potency can increase even more. The most suitable person to use the card is Hu, and so the protagonist gives it to her. Happy, the girl thanks him, saying that she will finally have some utility in battle. She even bows before her captain, offering loyalty, but Kai asks her to stop, saying she earned the card on her own merit. The only downside is that the other card has hidden information. Still, the protagonist decides to use it, believing that, somehow, it might work for him. Upon activating the ability, the goddess of skills appears, revealing its information. This new ability allows the hero to absorb attributes from his enemy for 30 minutes, after which the effect disappears. For Kai, however, this doesn't seem very useful. He complains, saying that the ability should be extremely powerful, but it is the opposite, weak and useless. Meanwhile, the drunkard wakes up confused, and the seer teases him, reminding him that he had 35 wives in the last few nights. One then remembers and starts to vomit. Then he starts to cry, saying that he was not useful to the captain and that, if it is his wish, he can leave the group. But for the MC, Huang was extremely useful. As a reward, he gives the drunk a new piece of equipment. Kai explains that without him, they wouldn't have been able to defeat so many banshees and that Huang has become an important part of their strategy. Still, the drunk hesitates, saying he wasn't as effective as he would have liked. But the protagonist insists that he accept and also hands equipment to Hu, asking her to take it. The two are happy, as they finally have a captain they can trust and feel they have real utility in their team. Back in the safe area to exchange their items for money, the attendant informs the protagonist that he has accumulated 840,000 star coins. Kai is beaming, as this amounts to 84 million on planet Earth. In addition, he keeps some equipment for himself, pants that help him hide without being detected, a chess piece that can nullify attacks in critical situations, and an old glove that increases critical damage. He feels that if he faced a level 20 adventurer, he could easily defeat him. While still immersed in his satisfaction, Babinho appears carrying a pile of wood. Suddenly, he throws a dagger at the protagonist, asking to check his stats. Kai, surprised, asks what he is doing. The thrown dagger returns to the drunk's hand on its own. He explains that he noticed the captain's difficulties in retrieving his daggers during fights and is excited because he won't have to worry about the number of daggers he has anymore. He continues, saying that upon returning, he can deal damage to anyone nearby. The protagonist comments that he didn't expect such talent from the drunk. Huang, suspicious, asks if the captain really believes he has any skill. He swears he does, but ironically, a lightning bolt strikes behind him, as if to contradict him. The rain begins to intensify, and Huang asks why the captain is lying. At that moment, the seer appears, saying that she has finally learned to use her power. Kai, however, comments that that ability still seems useless, but acknowledges that if the purple one can make the rain more intense, it could help in the future. Hu promises to train even harder to be useful to her captain, and he is pleased with the evolution of his team. In the background, some men complain about the rain, worried that the equipment meant for the Huang and Mali families might be damaged. Upon hearing the name of the Huang family, the protagonist asks them to stop and explain that the family plans to take 200,000 people to the frozen island. Moreover, other forces will also join to exterminate the monsters in the area, adding that every man has a responsibility to uphold. After explaining, they begin to leave the area, saying they have more important things to do. leaving the protagonist thinking about Huang going as well. Furthermore, now that the god of the demonic planet is causing problems, the entire nation needs to unite and fight against the bosses in the area, as that is the only way they will win the final war. It is also explained that the monsters are divided into a hierarchy, consisting of normal, elite, warriors, kings, and commanders, in addition to, obviously, the guardian. And to complicate matters further, all creatures of elite level and above are extremely terrifying, questioning whether the Huangs will actually do this. Perhaps the Huang family has indeed changed their behavior, and now thinks for the sake of humanity. Just as the army commander had said, if this war is about to begin, the protagonist wishes to go, as he is also part of the country, and it is his responsibility as a hero. So, he heads towards the frozen island and complains about it being too cold because Kai didn't buy suitable clothes for the weather. Suddenly, a man calls out and asks which team they belong to for being there. The protagonist asks why they shouldn't walk in that area. Then, the man replies that there are submerged monsters there and any movement could wake them up. Just as the man had said, the first creature appears, known as Fishman, level 22. Thanks to their agility, Kai and his team are not hit. Meanwhile, the men watch, saying that those three are idiots and will therefore be unmade. Unfortunately, the specialty of those creatures is close-range attacks, leaving only pain and suffering for his team. However, we know that for the protagonist, that is nothing, as his strength is extremely superior. A single attack using his flaming daggers was enough, terrifying the onlookers above. That even served as a warm-up for Kai, as he no longer feels cold, in addition to the fact that he comments that his strength has 76 experience points. However, he shouldn't place too much importance on this damage, as it is just a conservative estimate. Meanwhile, he knows that no one will resist him, whether they are creatures or adventurers of level 20 or higher. The seer runs towards the hero, saying that she managed to get the collectible card of the monster fish. He thanks her and warns that they should leave that place soon, before another monster appears. Additionally, he asks the three bystanders if they know where Wei is. They leave their spot, but the hero cannot find who he is looking for, even though it is the place the men had mentioned. Moreover, he had left Huang and Hu behind because he didn't want them to be involved in this battle. While Kai was distracted, Huang Wei appears accompanied by his men and calls out to the protagonist. Thus, he comments that it is impressive to know that this young man is willing to fight against someone so strong for the sake of his country. However, while the hero was speaking, he is caught off guard by an attack from Huang Wei, who is still angry and has unresolved issues from the past. The blonde explains to the protagonist that, thanks to him, he had to undergo therapy for a while to recover. And now he appears wanting to be friends. In addition to talking about wanting his revenge, he says that since that day he has been tormented by people due to shame, but he was warned by the army that he should leave Kai's family and him alone. Unfortunately or fortunately, that will not happen on his part. He explains that he is only there to defeat the boss and use that as leverage against the army to lift the protection over his family. The hero questions if that is the purpose of his life now. Then, he replies that yes, however, he did not expect the protagonist to appear before him taking the initiative. In any case, before ending the war, he will first take care of the protagonist. Unfortunately, the protagonist was naive to think that he would have changed, warning the young man that if he wants to fight, he should gather his team. Upon hearing this, the new group of the blonde starts laughing, saying that their master is at level 14 and has level S equipment. But they quickly regret what they just said, as the protagonist is also at level 14, despite being the same age as their master. However, while they were boasting, their leader was hit by an attack from the protagonist, causing him significant damage. The bystanders, now scared, ask what is happening, while only hearing the leader calling for help. Thinking he had won, the blonde tells the bystanders to leave quickly, lest they end up like their master. However, he is surprised, as the greedy blonde is still alive. Thanks to his equipment, he managed to survive, but with only 1% health, and he then orders his henchmen to eliminate Kai. Even in front of someone as strong as the MC, Huang continues to send people to sacrifice themselves. The hero says that this is perfect, as he will test his skills using the enemy's henchmen. Some barely manage to dodge the daggers and therefore start mocking the protagonist. The fool who believed he could defeat the Prota will be the first to succumb to his power. But first, the protagonist warns that the nail that sticks out always gets hammered first. The poor man, in that heat, only agonizes in pain, while his friends question how someone at level 14 could defeat an opponent at level 32. Suddenly, the protagonist appears behind him, saying that this is not the end, and he asks for his daggers to return, hitting another man who also succumbs. Thus, the bystanders ask how such a skill and such high damage can exist, questioning if Kai is cheating in the game. The blonde warns that under no circumstances can they let the protagonist attack from a distance, and orders them to attack together. Again, Huang Yi believes that by preventing the protagonist from fighting at a distance, he will achieve victory. However, the opposite of what was expected happens. His henchmen end up being roasted before his eyes, while the hero walks towards him. As he advanced, he said that it didn't matter if he faced an entire group or just one person. In desperation, the blonde questions the vast difference between them and how Kai can fight so easily. Summoning his magic, the protagonist says that he was willing to leave the past behind, but since the man is determined to kill him, he will make his trauma increase. Thus, he drives his sword into the enemy's head, who screams in pain before completely succumbing. A few minutes passed after defeating his enemies, and he comments that he did not expect that group to take him to level 17. However, what he did not expect was that the system would notify him of a penalty for defeating more than 10 adventurers from the same team. The punishment he will receive consists of the fact that all players around him will know his exact location. Thus, Kai is frightened, as he knows that this penalty will bring him immeasurable losses. Moreover, he remembers that, due to his talent, there is a chance the penalty could increase tenfold if he is not lucky. Knowing he could be hunted, he is in shock, as if something happens, he will return to level 1, and therefore, he should not go to places with many people. This time, we find ourselves in the Huang family's field. There, a man screams in disbelief that his son has been unlived. Huang Tong mentions the agreement he made between his two sons. They would fight side by side for their country, but now one, unfortunately, has died again. Huang De then asks how they should deal with this situation now. Promptly, their father responds that they must defeat the boss anyway to use against the army. Half an hour has passed, and Kai is with his team again. The seer questions the reason for the delay, and the drunkard acknowledges that the MC has become a killer. The protagonist replies that he cannot explain now, as they are out of time, but gives a brief summary that he has become the #1 enemy of the Huang family. As they leave, a sound begins to resonate throughout the area. Our hero questions what that is, and the drunkard responds that it is the sound of the war beginning. His friend, looking back, asks him to do the same, and suddenly, creatures begin to emerge from the ice. A horde of monsters surrounds them. They become worried, as they will have to defeat all of that. Additionally, the boss himself has awakened, making them even more anxious. A man riding a lion warns his subordinates that the war has finally begun, and the first opponent to be defeated is the fishmen. Regardless of what happens in the outcomes, all that matters is victory, and therefore, he orders them to charge at that creature. On one side, humans, and on the other, their natural enemies from the demonic planet. The seer warns that they must go now and avoid the impending disaster. But Kai responds that they should not go, as soon the battle will begin, and the Huang family will be too busy to worry. And so, they must stay. The soldiers rush towards the adversary, but they are weak and therefore, are frightened by the size and level of that creature. The squad leader urges everyone not to be afraid, as it is merely large, and their numbers are greater. As he spoke, he was hit by an attack. He begins to scream for help, but there is no time for anyone to do anything for him. His companions watch their captain being devoured by the boss. Meanwhile, the seer asks why those people are having difficulty with a common enemy like that. Kai explains that if the army wants to win, they must focus on eliminating the boss. For as long as he is alive, all the creatures will return. This battle is no longer between an army of 200,000 men, but rather between an army, the entity, and its supreme soldiers. A man, conjuring his fire magic, warns his friends to be careful. As they are entering the attack zone, everyone begins to exercise extra caution. They all know they need to give their best if they want to deal maximum damage to the main boss. With that, Ruan and Hu comment that the power of the army guys is great, and they seem like they will defeat the Guardian. However, they are interrupted by Kai, saying that the situation they are in is not good at all. Therefore, he activates his ghostly eye ability, stating that through his skill, he can see that those people haven't even managed to deal damage. With that, one of the guys questions how their attacks were not even possible to get past the defense. However, what they did not expect was an immediate counterattack. Each of the closest ones was hit, flying away, while the boss, in the background, sits without even suffering any damage. Everyone on the battlefield wonders how it was possible for the 8 supreme heroes to be defeated so easily. Meanwhile, the MC thinks about the strength the boss must possess. Holding his staff, a man runs towards the boss. Kai questions why he is doing this alone, given that the 8 supreme heroes have just perished. Determined, the cloaked man advances without fearing the future. Meanwhile, the soldiers are only worried, as yet another person will end up dying. Then, that man, holding his spear in the form of a staff, conjures his power while trying to stop the boss's attack. The cloaked one explains that at no point did his friends sacrifice themselves in vain, as this was all planned to deal damage to the primordial trash. The person in question, standing, is Jiang Feng, one of the supreme heroes. He warns that, in front of the fallen people, he will seek his revenge. With that, the system notifies that his talent has been activated and his strength will increase by 25%. The man then manages to deliver an attack to the entity that even causes damage to him. Everyone, without exception, is happy, as there is hope to defeat the enemy. Thanks to his talent and the people who just died, his power increased by 200%, as if there were 20 Supremes by his side. Without time to rest, Jiang Feng continues to attack the boss, while his leader says that if things continue this way, they will surely win the battle. However, what Kai and his team did not expect was that an elite monster of level 32 appeared behind them to attack. Wang Dao then informs his father, having been notified by the system, that the army of fishmen has just been summoned around the island. His father asks about the veracity of the information, and Wang Dao confirms again, saying that all the monsters that just spawned are level 30 and above. Wang Dao's father complains, as now that they have managed to stabilize the battlefield, other enemies appear. Thanks to this system, he found a balanced way to divide his men. He knows that they cannot be caught off guard by the enemies, as this would make Jiang Feng unable to kill the boss, and many soldiers would lose their lives. The general asks his son how long it will take for the fishmen to reach the battlefield. He replies that it takes about 10 minutes, and the time Jiang Feng needs to defeat the boss is 30 minutes. While they resolve the issue of the army, Kai was fighting against his enemies alone, defending his team. The seer, afraid of what might happen, warns that they must leave the area immediately. The hero refuses, knowing that if those fish get through, they will upset the battlefield, resulting in the failure of the war. Unfortunately, the protagonist finds himself in a dilemma, as the Huang family deserves to lose, but those 200,000 people there do not, as they are innocent. Again, Kai remembers what the commander of the main army had said: there would come a time when he would have to take responsibility to save his country. Making his decision, he informs his team that he will not leave and that he needs them to lure the fish from the sea around him. He will handle everything himself, startling his team with the decision made. A few minutes pass, and on the field, all the soldiers are being defeated one by one. One of the fallen men asks his general to give the order to retreat for a moment, as many people are being defeated. It is an important decision and a heavy burden for the captain of that squad, as many people there need to continue working on the demon planet. But for the captain, the fight in front of him is more important, so he says he will not retreat. One of his leaders then questions whether the captain is blind, as 10 minutes have already passed since what was mentioned, and yet the fishmen have not appeared. Everyone finds it strange that none have appeared, and therefore they ask if the Huang family is involved, but they end up being told no. For them, this means that there must be someone powerful enough fighting while they are there. Indeed, the protagonist is attracting all the fishermen to defeat them one by one, tearing apart his enemies. The protagonist warns that the last person who dared to speak to him dug their own grave. Although he is managing to defeat those creatures, he feels a bit of difficulty, as the number increases with each enemy he destroys. While he was distracted, the seer ends up being chased by the fish, and she screams for help along with the drunkard. Seeing his two friends in danger, he asks them to run and hide, as he will take care of the rest. However, his group finds it very risky and asks if he can handle it. Then, the hero replies that yes, as despite feeling difficulties, he feels more comfortable when defeating his enemies in groups. Hu and Huang are startled to notice the strength their captain possesses due to the high damage he caused to the fishmen. The fight between the protagonist and his enemies spreads across the battlefield. The soldiers in the background ask what is happening. Huang Da questions his father if, for some reason, he called military reinforcements without informing him. While his father thinks about this, amidst the war, there is no time for reflection. Then, the army leader orders his soldiers to focus on the battlefield to balance it, and let Jiang Feng deal with the boss alone. After several hours of attack, Jiang Feng's blows begin to take effect, lowering the boss's health to 65%. Meanwhile, their happiness is abruptly cut in half, as Huang Da warns that the boss has just entered his berserk mode. He explains that, in this phase, the strikes and attacks will be faster, making them difficult to dodge. Basically, to defeat this phase of the boss, Jiang Feng needs to endure as many attacks as possible. But happily or unfortunately, his health has dropped to 5%, alarming everyone on the battlefield. Apparently, it's not just the entity that has a second phase, as the Supreme Leader has just activated his as well. A large portion of the attacks from the Fishman leader are reflected back by Jiang Feng's armor, returning to cause damage. The protagonist is pleased to see a type of armor that can reflect damage, in addition to protecting against heavy attacks. The soldiers celebrate, as there is now a small chance to defeat that creature. The redhead rejoices, as he made the right decision by bringing Jiang Feng to the battlefield, since he can deflect 50% of the enemy damage for up to 90 seconds. He is even more excited, as the more attacks the boss unleashes, the more health he loses, now down to 30%. With this, a possible victory is celebrated, But everyone is surprised when the supreme leader delivers a devastating blow. Due to the impact, Jiang Feng is thrown back and defeated, leaving him with only 1% health. Everyone on the battlefield loses hope, as the supreme leader has just fallen. The leader of the Huang family begins to blame himself for not immediately recognizing the true strength of the boss. The war proves to be invincible. A soldier tries to hold on with the little strength he has left, lamenting bringing Zhu Zi and son Nanan to the battlefield. He admits that he only wanted to prove he was better, but remembers that Kai would never let his friends die. The healer, in despair, cries upon seeing her captain about to be killed. In a cry of hope, she calls for help, begging someone to save him. With no strength left, all she can do is pray for a miracle, for if the boss is not defeated, the army of fishmen will continue to be reborn and everyone will share the same fate, death. The poor man has his last defense shattered, his shield is broken, and he has no choice but to accept the blow. However, at the decisive moment, our hero appears on the battlefield, saving that group. With Kai's appearance, his enemies and the captain recognize who has just saved the group. They are happy, knowing they will live for a little longer. However, there is no time to waste, and the protagonist warns them to protect themselves, as he will now go to defeat the boss. You are really something. With the little strength he has left, he tries to get up while questioning if he heard correctly what his friend just said. The muscular man and the healer question why they can see Kai's location so easily. The hero moves across the battlefield, and the soldiers sense a murderous aura. They wonder if that could be the blood recluse. His friends fear that he is going insane, as he still carries a title that will make him a target for everyone. Poor foolish men, and so they decide it is better to perish at the hands of the blood recluse than by the fishmen. Thus, they head in his direction, but one of them ends up being hit by the hero's doorman. The pink-haired girl and the muscular man become worried, believing their friend has just been killed. But for the hero, that is nothing, and he continues advancing without fear of what may happen. Meanwhile, bystanders question how it is possible for a level 10 novice to deal such high damage. His friends rejoice, as not only has the hero survived, but he is stronger than ever. Their captain is surprised to see that Kai can attack adventurers of level 20 or higher. Then, Huang calls for his father and informs him that he can sense the MC's presence on the battlefield and that he is heading toward the boss. The father asks if he is really worried about someone at such an important moment. For the bald blonde, that feeling in his chest remains, and he feels that Kai will be able to defeat the boss. As he advances, he comments that his former self would never do this, but the man he is now will use all his strength to protect his country. Thus, he calls for the system and requests to activate the ability he acquired earlier. The goddess of the system appears, activating the ability, and originally, the MC did not expect this to be useful, but it will definitely have value in this critical moment. Due to his assassin status, everyone on the battlefield pays attention to him, and thus, he manages to steal 1 experience point from the 200,000 soldiers present. Thanks to these positions, his power reaches 5 digits, leaving Huang in shock, who informs his father that the protagonist is fighting against the boss. And it doesn't stop there, as the MC's attributes now double those of Jiang Feng, making his father feel fear. The fear of those two rises like never before, as they watch Kai pass through the enemies without even dodging, something a level 60 hero would do carefully. The hero only needs a single punch to defeat anyone in front of him, surprising the entire battlefield with the strength he demonstrates. As he crosses those creatures, he ends up attracting the attention of a level 74 fish commander, who turns against him and uses its sound power. The weak begin to overestimate the situation, saying that he truly wouldn't be able to hold his ground against such a superior commander. Everyone thinks it's the end for the MC, fallen to the ground, as the creature charges at him. His friends scream his name in despair. Suddenly, the drunkard appears to help. Due to the effect of alcohol, he no longer has control over his actions and therefore, blurts out that he would like to receive a kiss from that creature. Holding that hideous creature, he says he doesn't want anyone to steal it from him, and then kisses it. For some reason, that ugly thing blushes and throws him to the ground, while he tries to get up, all battered. Some try to understand who that man is and how he can simply ignore the attack of a fish commander, and still remain unharmed. However, Kai doesn't like Han's attitude, as he doesn't want to put him in danger. At the same time, the drunkard calls for him, saying he would never abandon him. The seer also appears and begins to conjure her power to help him. The drunkard continues to draw his wife's attention, and the MC feels happy, as he has reliable companions by his side. Some men question why the girl used the rain dance. She replies that, in fact, some don't even know enough physics to understand her attack. A smarter soldier notices and warns his companions to look at the sky. They look and see that large hail is falling, hitting a good portion of the people and creatures there. She boasts, as she previously had no attacks at all, but due to the island's weather, she managed to defeat 200 people at once. It doesn't end there, as she clearly remembers the words spoken by her captain, warning that he can fight against the fishmen without worry. Clearly, the MC is surprised, as his companions are being extremely helpful to him. Once again, the seer reminds him that he is not fighting alone, but rather with extremely reliable people by his side. To the drunkard's misfortune, a group of 3 people has just defeated his wife again. Returning to the protagonist, he apologizes for underestimating the two and thanks them for everything they have done for him so far. Thus, he begins to use his most powerful attacks against those creatures, defeating them one by one. Baldy Huang and Redhead Huang question how it is possible for Jiang to be defeating a fish commander so easily. While some try to understand what kind of power the MC possesses, he is focused on defeating even a god if necessary, as he feels stronger. Before the boss, Kai taunts him, saying he looks incredibly strong, but incredibly ugly. On the battlefield, while some support, others are incredulous at what they are seeing. His friend the seer supports him, urging him to defeat that creature. Thus, the hero advances to the final battle, while the leader of the fishmen activates his ability again, and one of the soldiers quickly warns about it. As he advances, the boss quickly counterattacks, but for Kai, those blows are easy to dodge, which makes him question Jiang Feng's strength. For our hero, there is no bad weather. Everyone on the battlefield has their expectations restored. The Supreme Guardian attacks the MC, but he manages to dodge and counterattack with his flame, reducing the enemy's health to 25%. Again on the battlefield, some people try to understand how a single person can cause so much damage. The war is not over yet. Even with reduced health, the enemy remains standing, ready to retaliate. The 2 strongest on the battlefield stand firm, staring at each other, while the army watches, not understanding the reason for the absence of an attack. However, suddenly the silence is broken, and the Guardian begins to suck all the air around, and in a single movement, lets out a powerful roar. Despite the intensity, it was not enough to stop Kai, who is quickly surprised by a second attack. Again, the blow fails to bring him down, but it raises questions among the soldiers who wonder if the hero has been fatally hit. This time, however, it is the MC himself who reacts, counterattacking with precision and destroying the weapon the boss was using. On the battlefield, people exchange glances, trying to remember if anyone has ever been as strong as the protagonist. Determined to end the fight quickly, he advances, stating that it is a waste of time to prolong this. He then strikes the Guardian with the flame of his dagger, forcing him to kneel before him and reducing his health to 15%. In a brutal sequence of attacks, Kai manages to lower it even further, leaving the boss with only 5% health. Even so, the MC grows irritated with the delay in taking down the creature, questioning why it isn't defeated once and for all. More and more blows are launched against the enemy, while he grows tired of this same story. What Jiang is doing on the battlefield is unbelievable. At this very moment, he has just left the enemy with only 1% health. Realizing the MC's power, the redhead is in shock, as at no point has the boss been able to inflict damage on him. 2 army leaders appear on the scene, summoned by Huang Tong, who feared the worst. However, Shun and Lu Jun comment to each other that they never expected the battle to take this turn, much less to encounter the person Commander Wei had spoken of. Obviously, he would not want Jiang Kai to be the one to finish off the boss. Therefore, he quickly orders his soldiers to abandon their fights and head towards the creature to defeat it before him. To persuade the warriors on the battlefield, he announces that if they let the protagonist finish off the boss, no one will receive a reward. Those words echo in the minds of many, as some need to pay for treatments, while others just want to survive. Thus, they decide to risk everything to confront the protagonist. The fools, unaware, have just sealed their own fate. They drop everything they were doing and charge forward, thirsty for blood. The hero watches the enemy's approach and criticizes the Huang family's decision. At the same time, he turns to Jiang Feng, asking if he does not intend to end this soon. Then, the supreme leader questions why the protagonist has not yet defeated the boss. The hero replies that he is not naive enough to steal the glory from the one who initiated the whole process. Making the right decision, Kai explains that he cannot simply finish off the boss, as so many people are hostages of the Huang family. Therefore, someone from that group must be responsible for delivering the final blow. Thus, he asks that it be Jiang Feng who ends the creature. This kind of behavior surprises Jiang Feng, who did not expect such an outcome. Our hero urges him to hurry, fearing for his own life. Grateful, Jiang Feng accepts and delivers the final blow, ending the creature's remaining life. The system then notifies Jiang Feng has defeated the leader of the fishmen. Immediately, the battlefield stirs, with many questioning whether it was not Jiang Kai who defeated the boss. With the fall of the most powerful creature, all remaining fishmen begin to retreat to their lairs, having no reason to continue fighting. Some soldiers are satisfied, happy to see the supreme leader as the one responsible for the victory. Meanwhile, Tong and De try to better understand the situation. Overall, everyone celebrates, certain that they will receive their rewards, and little by little, the collective opinion about the protagonist begins to change. Sun Nu and Kbum are amazed. Witnessing a grand feat, even their captain Incredul has the opportunity to watch. Another friend of the protagonist boasts, proud of having wisely chosen who would be her captain. However, on the battlefield, some begin to rethink their loyalty to the Huang family. Recalling the threats made by Tong, tension rises. Sensing the imminent risk, Tong warns his father that they must withdraw immediately, as 200,000 people could turn against them. Father and son are frustrated, consumed by defeat and humiliation, and leave vowing that they will never forget what happened. Meanwhile, the leader thanks the protagonist for everything he has done and, not wanting to intrude too much, still asks how Kai achieved such high attributes. The hero calmly responds, explaining that he possesses a special ability that allows him to achieve such feats. However, before they could talk further, the unexpected happens. The glaciers begin to tremble. From a deep fissure, a gigantic tentacle emerges. Taking advantage of the protagonist's distraction, the monstrous appendage grabs him and violently pulls him into the abyss. Upon realizing the attack Jiang Kai has just received, his friends rush desperately to the location where he was. But before they could reach him, they received the terrible notification from the system. The protagonist had been captured by the Revenge of the Dead. This rare ability is known to be the last resort of some bosses after being defeated. The captured adventurer would suffer a horrendous punishment, subjected to unimaginable pain, and even after the revenge was over, he would return to the land carrying that burden. Upon hearing this, the seer broke down in tears, her heart shattered with worry for her friend. Meanwhile, the scene showed the protagonist in absolute despair, trapped by the grotesque tentacles of the creature that should have been defeated. Now, it was hurting him mercilessly, while the system notified that, in a few seconds, all the user's skills and attributes would be removed. Kai understood right away that he was alive only thanks to the absurd accumulation of power he possessed, and without it, he would be eliminated instantly. The countdown was going down, 15 seconds. Even in intense pain, the protagonist sought an escape, knowing that, in the end, he could not rely solely on luck. With the little strength he had left, he activated his phantom armor, managing to free himself for a few moments. But the price was high. As soon as he broke free, his body returned to its previous state, fragile and vulnerable. The fight intensified. The countdown continued 3 seconds. With no alternatives, Jiang Kai grabbed his flaming daggers, forcing his body to move despite the excruciating pain. He knew he had to resist, defend himself with what little power remained, because, for him, the battle was not yet over. Clumsily, the MC asks the goddess if the war is finally over. She replies that it is and congratulates him for managing to escape Lord Page's revenge, and congratulates him again for defeating him without suffering much damage. Moreover, he achieved the feat of defeating the boss and will receive his reward, entering the room where the treasure was kept. However, the only problem is that the hero has only 10 minutes, and after that, the room will be destroyed. Doing so, he gets angry and questions why there is a countdown again. Additionally, there will be another problem, which consists of the fact that if he does not escape, he will end up being unlived, losing a good part of his treasures and experience. Thus, he decides to start immediately and collect as many things as possible to escape safely. Upon opening the door, he is faced with magnificent treasures in an exuberant quantity, as well as a potion that can increase his attributes by up to 60 points. As he has no time to lose, he drinks the potion in one go and asks to allocate all the points to agility. This is done by the system. Again, until then, it appears and congratulates him for discovering the rarest items in the area, and he feels happy and tries to hurry, as he still has 7 minutes. What he did not expect was that there would be a timer again, this time for 90 seconds, for him to collect as many items as possible from that chest. Without looking much, he hurriedly grabs as much as he can, becoming completely exhausted right after taking everything he wanted. This time the system appeared to congratulate him for finding tears of regret, which can be used to remove the assassin status. While he was distracted with what he should take, and happy because the assassin effect had passed, he came across an item in the corner of the wall. The artifact itself allows the person who uses it to change their profession at level 20. Thus, our MC wonders if with that thing he can effectively change his profession. A day has already passed since the protagonist was captured, causing his closest friends to mourn his loss. In tears, the seer and the drunkard cry, for their captain is no longer around. What they did not expect was that someone, at that very moment, was climbing the hills of hell. Back, holding a stone, the seer notifies her partner that another fishman is coming up. And so, both begin to throw stones towards the crevice, saying they will not allow anyone else to disturb their captain's funeral. What the fools did not expect was that the one climbing the dungeon was their captain, who ends up falling again. As the hero fell, he shouted, and thus caught the attention of the seer, who said that the voice sounded familiar, but they still refused to believe what they heard. To their happiness, Kai managed to climb up again and now runs towards them, saying that it has been so long since he last saw them. But obviously, his reaction would not be that, and so he questioned his companions if they were trying to deviate the hero. On planet Earth, in the city of Jiangzhou, the army leaders are gathered, discussing the protagonist having a stolen ability. Commander Ye says that, even because of this ability, people no longer even need to train. Meanwhile, Lu Jun wonders about the protagonist's state, as he remembers that he was captured by the boss's revenge. The man with long blonde hair says that it is not possible for someone to be trapped for so long in this. But the bearded soldier knows he shouldn't rely on common sense regarding Jiang Kai and that, in fact, there is a chance he has found the treasure room. However, one man refuses to believe it, saying it is impossible, as since the demon planet came into existence, few people have managed to survive it. Lu Jun also tends to believe that perhaps the protagonist indeed did not survive. Commander Ye warns that his instincts tell him otherwise when suddenly, Sun One's sister appears in the room, calling for him. Since they are in an important conversation, they end up questioning the girl if this is a reason to interrupt something significant. That's when she informs them that the matter to be discussed is about Jian, as at this very moment, he has opened a shop on the demon planet and is selling items. Then, to ensure they are not being deceived, they open the system and realize that at this very moment, the protagonist has just sold an item for 18 million. He also just sold an iron crystal for 63 million and a bunch of other items totaling around 100 million, leaving them in shock, as the hero has just sold items for over 400 million. This makes Commander Ye laugh, as he had warned that common sense does not apply to Kai. However, he is interrupted and informed that the Huang family wishes to see him. Back on the demon planet, the MC is complaining, as he had to give many discounts on his sales, even having to open a private business to manage to sell. In any case, he informs them that he managed to get items from the boss's room to give to his teammates. For the seer, the first thing he will give is the Black Ice Jade, allowing her to perform a type of freezing magic. And for Huang, he hands over a shield that increases his defense, strength, and physique, allowing him to temporarily freeze enemies. In addition to the equipment, he also gained artifacts that can help improve skills. Our hero explains that there are only two ways to enhance skills. One is by studying and striving to learn, and the other is by obtaining artifacts. These artifacts are so rare that each one can exceed 500,000 coins in value. However, the improvement only happens depending on the strength of the skill, thus requiring more or fewer artifacts to use, impressing his teammates. As at this moment, the hero is richer than ever, he asks his friends to enjoy the efforts. Therefore, he clings to his captain and thanks him for turning their day into joy and that they will never part ways. While in the background our team is arguing because they want to go to a different place. Two men pass by talking calmly. However, Davy appears and questions if Kai truly knows what it means to be shameful, as they are a bunch of losers. The seer and the drunkard ask who that man is, while he continues telling the MC not to push it for too long, and that if the protagonist continues opposing the Huang family, he will be eliminated without mercy. Moreover, in the guild challenge, he will show the military that he is nothing but a useless bastard, giving the final warning that when the guild lifts the protection, our hero should be prepared, as he will be eliminated by Da's hand. However, Kai does not know what he is talking about regarding the guild challenge. With that, Little Who explains that the guild challenge is to showcase the strength of the people in one guild or another. She explains that the required level is 21 and above, and each team sends up to 5 people to participate in the competition. Obviously, there will be rewards for the top 3 who finish at the top, with always a strong competition. In any case, she informs her companions that she will disconnect, as she needs to visit her family. Already at the hospital, his brother questions the amount he spent on all the medications. To this, he replies that there is no need to worry, as his brother just had surgery, and he will do everything to make him feel better. His brother responds by saying that the hospital he is in is already expensive enough to afford and asks not to waste money unnecessarily. Then, he replies that he never forgot his brother's dream and that, therefore, as soon as he is discharged, he should return to being an adventurer. But his brother knows it is difficult to go under the conditions he is in. Moreover, it is expensive to buy equipment. However, Kai responds that he does not need to worry about money and that he will never have to work again, while showing the system with the balance he has. That, instead of relieving, ends up frightening his brother, who asks how he managed to get hundreds of millions. However, the protagonist responds that he earned that money honestly on the demonic planet, and therefore, should not worry. Moreover, he clearly remembers what his brother did to save them from the battlefield. Thus, he must return and save even more people. Despite the comforting and reassuring words, his brother still has doubts, as his body is weak. Then, the MC picks up a halved apple and hands it over, saying that he can definitely be a hero. Leaving the hospital, the protagonist is happy because his brother will finally be able to fulfill his dream. In addition, Ingzi will return to school as well. While he was distracted, Lu Jun appears and asks to come with him. However, the protagonist replies that there is no time, as he needs to go to school. The only reason Ravinho is there is that something happened to his sister. Elaif, unfortunately, got involved in the accident. Arriving at the location, Kai is worried and therefore starts shouting his sister's name while desperately running towards the bus. However, someone calls out to him, saying that she is fine, and he then runs close to his sister and asks what happened. She replies that, unfortunately, the bus caused an accident. But Jiang Feng, who was there, helped save her, leaving her without any injuries. Our hero, concerned, questions why a man from the Huang family is there. Then, Lu Jun approaches and asks to explain to Kai the most important point of all, as the accident was caused by the Huang family. This is due to the fact that he has been interfering with the Huang family, and now that this family has defeated the Ice Boss, they have been using this to attack the protagonist. Commander E is doing everything he can to keep him and his family safe, and the only way for the protagonist to remain under the protection of the army is to face the family in the guild challenge. Lu Jun finishes explaining that this was the limit to which the army could commit, and that if he does not participate, the consequences will fall on his family. And since the merit of the boss's defeat has fallen on the Huang family, all they can do from now on is turn a blind eye, leaving him with only two options, one to participate in the bet, and the other to enlist in the military as soon as possible. Kai's sister asks if they will indeed receive protection if her brother joins the army. Lu Jun replies that yes, as the MC still has a valuable profession. This ends up making the MC sad, as he can imagine various things that will happen to his family from now on. However, it is not a moment of sadness for him, as he knows that if he joins the army, he may become useless to them in the future and be abandoned. But if he does not join, his family will be oppressed in every way. However, despite the Huang family having resources, wealth, and power, Kai has something even better, a talent that can allow him to have double the attributes of anyone. Still lost in thought, he knows he has various types of advantages, whether fighting against people of his own level and having an extremely stronger power, or even when facing someone of a higher level, he ends up winning, giving him another advantage, which is his profession, which is still a secret to everyone. So, he decides to enter the Huang family's bet, but first, he will make sure everyone knows about it, and that, as long as his profession is useful to him, the military will pay attention and protect him from everything. Ruivinho thought he had won the argument, but the protagonist responds that he will face the Huang family. However, the only problem is that he has only 3 people on his team and therefore, would like to recruit 2 more from the army. This scares the boy, who ends up asking what Kai is doing, as he just picked a fight with a giant family like the Huang family. Thus, the protagonist thanks Lu Jun for his help, stating that he is completely clear-minded and will therefore take control of his destiny. There was still a clash of thoughts between the two. Therefore, Heishin appears saying that he likes the protagonist and will support him by lending some people. Zhang Feng warns that, as a friend of Kai, he will help him too and will keep an eye on the Huang family in case they try to mess with him again. But still, Lu Jun cannot understand why those people are acting impossibly. When one does not want to, two cannot. Therefore, Lu Jun warns that, in any case, he was instructed by Commander Wei to help the MC, and the protagonist thanks the 3, saying that if they need him in the future, they can definitely count on him, as he will help in any way. Thus, the siblings walk to Taide at night, as they are going to see a new house. His sister questions the reason for this. Then, the MC replies that, since the Huang family is wicked, they must be cautious about what is possible. Chikina then asks if they haven't stopped at the wrong place, as the houses there have an extravagant value. The protagonist warns that this will be their house from now on. The girl enters ecstasy, as the house is more beautiful and cozy than anything she has ever seen, besides having a lovely pool, a large living room, and other things. She becomes even happier when she enters her room and asks if she is not dreaming, as that place is extremely beautiful. Her brother, as a good protector, tells her not to worry, as from now on, they will lead a comfortable life and yes, this will be their house from now on. The next day, Suno Nuan and Kbam are gathered, as they think they have been abandoned by the military due to their performances. Then, the protagonist appears behind them, asking why they are sad. This prompts the 2 to ask if the MC will join the army, but he replies that he will not and is only temporarily collaborating to win the guild challenge. He explains that he got involved in this because Commander Wei made a bet with the Huang family, and therefore, he must take measures to avoid being harmed. Thus, he called those 2 because they are reliable and if they would be willing to help him in this war. They quickly respond that they will, Bum asks our hero if he really wants to form a team with them. Then, the protagonist replies that yes and asks what is wrong with that. The muscular one explains that the army has an evolution system that can measure each person's strength, determining if they are weak or strong based on performance. If a person remains at a weak level for too long, they will be discarded, which caused both of them to receive a low evaluation at the start. Despite everything, Suno and Kbum are scared, but Kai assures them that by the end of a month, he will ensure that both will be at least grade A. But there are still doubts in both of them, as the team leader needs to be level 18 or above, while the MC is at level 15. Then, their two main teammates appear and inform them that he is actually at level 20 and is ready to change professions. In any case, Kai introduces those two, with her being Huin, the seer, and Huang, the drunkard. Then, everyone greets each other. Gradually, they realize they just heard that the protagonist is at level 20, while all the others are at level 9. Thus, the MC explains that level 20 for him is nothing, as he aims to elevate all of them to superior level 20. Only then can they defeat the Huangs. This makes Kbum question if he is hearing correctly, as this is practically impossible. The seer approaches the commander and says that she has complete confidence in her captain and therefore, they should think of a name for the team, arriving at the result of Team Vulcan. With everything settled, the protagonist asks them to rest today, as tomorrow will be busy. However, he still has doubts in his heart. He is clearly afraid of what might happen. He remembers what he had to go through in the novice area, with the muscular one, feeling nervous and lacking confidence in his abilities. Despite Kai's encouraging words, this did not make the man feel good about himself, and therefore, the MC must think of something to help him flourish his talent. So, as a goal, he must help Shu elevate his talent and improve even more. But first, he must improve himself, using the 50 artifacts he still possesses. Then, he calls upon the goddess of skills and asks her to enhance the demon gaze and phantom flight. To start with, both cards just leveled up to level 2, thus increasing the penetration effect by 10% when throwing and 50% damage, although the consumption has increased. However, it doesn't stop there, as the system notifies that the more he trains his hands, the greater the chance of unlocking an additional state of the flying cards. Moreover, he will be able to enter a frenzied player state, having 10 seconds with increased attack speed, but the energy consumption will be 220%. Obviously, the ocular power was also increased by 50% tracking chance, but the mental energy consumption will rise to 120% when used. As his last ability allowed for a frenzied state, he also questions whether this time he will have another. The goddess warns that yes, and by activating this ability, she will be able to throw her opponents. But everything will depend on each person's mental strength. Depending on how high the mental strength of your enemy is, he may influence, but it will be with less effect, and it may even be ignored. And there are no risks of reverse effects. 2 days have passed, and finally, Kai and his team are in the territory of the armored lizard. Sibyl, scared as always, asks if the MC is not going crazy for bringing them there, since the level of those lizards is 25 and above. But evidently wanting to complicate things even further, he reminds them that in that territory, there are also warrior lizards above level 50. They know that, although rare, usually 1 in every 20, these monsters cause even more fear, as they are leaders among extremely strong creatures. Sununuin, despite trusting the protagonist's abilities, knows they are taking too much risk, as the level difference between them is enormous. Trying to reassure his team, the MC explains that the only way for them to improve is through real battles. Not only that, but he also reveals that there is a chance of obtaining artifacts for class change, which can only be found in special territories. Since these chests may contain items that allow for skill upgrades, the team becomes frightened. The seer then asks if the protagonist already has any. He simply replies that this is a secret and orders them to leave quickly, as they cannot waste time. Walking deeper into the forest, they notice lizard footprints, so the protagonist asks everyone to be careful. Meanwhile, the muscular one talks to Huang, asking how he deals with the fear of ghosts. The drunkard replies that he has never been afraid, as the special wines he produces have unique effects, one of which is the denial of feelings. But soon after, Huang asks his friend not to drink, as he will be extremely important in the fight due to his profession. While they were distracted, the MC notices something strange and warns his team that something will emerge beneath their feet. A level 25 lizard has just appeared, chasing them all. At that exact moment, the only one who remains still is the protagonist, causing his team to scream for him to move or he will be hit. But Kai remembers that he needs to help his friend overcome his own limits, and for that reason, he lets him face the lizard head-on to practice even more. Being an extremely common lizard, the protagonist knows that the muscular one can defeat it, but not easily. To encourage his friend, Jiang stands still, waiting for the creature's attack. His team goes into a panic, begging him to run or he will be devoured by the beast. Suddenly, Kbum takes the lead and manages to land a direct attack on the lizard. Everyone is surprised, including the MC, who is happy for his friend. But not everything goes as planned. The man becomes scared, as he would receive a counterattack. Kai, however, would not leave everything in the boy's hands. He uses his flaming daggers to strike the lizard. Then, he warns that he has left the enemy with little health and asks Zuzu to finish off the creature. The man, however, is scared and cannot even move. Even so, his fate cannot be defined by fear. He conjures a sword and pierces the lizard. His friends urge him to open his eyes, as the fight is already over. The system then notifies that the level 25 lizard has been defeated. The muscular one, trying to disguise it, comments that he was startled when he saw the creature coming out of the hole. He approaches Jiang and asks why he remained still. Jiang replies that his mind could not process everything that was happening at high speed. Moreover, he had received the promise that he would be protected. Trying to encourage Kbum, the healer comments that he couldn't even do that when he was led by another captain. Evidently impressed, he asks how his companion's attack could be so strong, and he replies that it is nothing compared to the other enemies they have faced. In any case, the MC asks them to stop talking and move on to the location where the chests surrounded by level 35 creatures are. They climb to a peak to get a better view and notice the presence of 3 elite lizards. Additionally, there may be a warrior lizard guarding the precious items. Kai is also worried, as the last time he only managed to defeat the fishman thanks to his ability to steal attributes. To start, he devises a plan. The seer should use her rain power to mask the group's scent. She replies that it will not be a problem, as she has overcome challenges that have strengthened her. The plan boils down to Huyan using the rain dance and Sun Wan preparing the poison. In the offensive part, the protagonist and Zhu Zui will remain, who will be responsible for preventing the lizards from getting too close to the MC. They begin the process. The lizards start to get confused. Meanwhile, Kbum runs in fear alongside the protagonist. However, what they did not expect was the exuberant number of lizards that appeared, and he asks the muscular one to cover his back. He activates his power and manages to help, throwing some creatures into the air. This gives Kai the chance to activate his ability, increasing his attack speed by 100%. With his daggers thrown at an impressive speed, the creatures begin to catch fire. Fortunately, they manage to defeat a good portion of the lizards. This impressed the seer and the drunkard with the teamwork of the Prota alongside Juzi. The healer warns that those two have been doing this since the novice test and that even their other captain has difficulty attacking that way. Returning to Kbum, he just finished off the last lizard and levels up. The MC responds that this was expected of him. Therefore, the two companions from the main team feel more confident now seeing those two fight. Observing the evolution curve of her friends, the healer can't wait to strengthen herself as well. While she was distracted, Kai calls her, asking to find the treasure chest that is nearby. But they find it strange that nothing has happened yet, as the warrior lizard has not appeared. His friend, concerned about the hero's mana expenditure, asks if he wouldn't like to rest, but Jiang replies that he is fine, and that, in any case, they should not stop searching or they will be surprised by more creatures. 10 minutes passed and they found neither the chest nor the warrior lizard, which raises doubts in Kai, who uses his ocular power to find what he desires. For some reason, Shuzi starts to feel cold, and the drunkard asks if he is okay. He replies that he is getting goosebumps. The seer, wanting to joke, says that the guy is nervous for no reason. However, from atop a cliff, something begins to move. Our hero, noticing this, activates his demonic ocular power and realizes that the problem is in the spot where the two are standing, and so he warns them not to move, but it seems to be too late, as a tail begins to fall towards them. The attack only hits the rock, giving them the opportunity to escape and stay close to the Prota. Finally, what they were looking for appeared, the level 58 warrior lizard. Unfortunately for them, the monster manages to camouflage itself with the colors of a rock. The MC acts immediately and throws his daggers at the enemy while asking for more information from Manhua. Unfortunately for them, the first class of warriors they encounter is a phosphorescent lizard that weighs 24 tons. Despite this information, at no point did the MC stop attacking the creature, resulting in good critical damage. This makes his friends happy, but not the hero, who is worried about the enemy's strength. However, as motivation, he also knows that the rewards will be better. For now, that lizard was the strongest the group would face, as it had a layer that made it difficult for the protagonist's daggers to penetrate. The drunkard asks what they should do to defeat the creature, but the healer replies that there aren't many options, as its strength exceeds 380. As she spoke, the lizard began to run towards the protagonist. To conclude, she warns that the enemy's strength was around 380. The friends become worried seeing him almost get hit, but fortunately, he manages to dodge, reflecting on what he could do to defeat the enemy. The hero knew that if he were hit by a simple scratch, he would be crushed. He is grateful for drinking the potion that increased his agility by 60 points. Then, he devises a plan that consists of using Juzi's power, but for that, he would need to make him activate his enhancement class. If he failed, they would have to flee immediately. To activate this enhancement, Kai calls for him, remaining still while waiting for the attack. Seeing the captain in danger, Juzi uses one of his powers to push the creature away, giving the group time to think of something better. Since it didn't have much effect, the protagonist tells his friend to run, as he would be pursued. To draw the enemy's attention, he throws his daggers while running with him. Suddenly, the drunkard decides to act and everyone realizes he was going to do something foolish. The hero knew he could not allow Huang to proceed, as it would be the end for him. Fortunately for everyone, he only activated his protective shield. Even so, it was not enough to contain the enemy. The drunkard ended up being thrown far away by the impact. However, Kai notices strange behavior in his friend and questions why he is not denying his feelings like before. It is then that the seer explains that Huang had managed to create a new formula for his drink. But instead of helping, he now believes he is an armored lizard and even claims to have found his female of prayers. Even the lizard itself does not understand what it heard, but without hesitation, it moves towards him. The battle continues, and the drunkard remains in love with the lizard. He runs towards his love while expressing his feelings, and in the background Kai attacks. However, the hero knows that things cannot continue this way. Meanwhile, Huang insists on calling the creature his wife, telling her to rest on his strong chest. Then, he shifts all the responsibility to his friend Juzi, saying that only he has a chance to defeat the hardtail. Juzi remembers the conversation he had with the drunkard about not being afraid of what to do. To heal this type of trauma, he pulls out the drink and ingests it, shouting. Upon consuming the drink, the system notifies that from now on, every time he drinks, he will not be aware of his strength or his actions, as he will become confused. Despite the hero's continuous attacks, it was still not enough to stop the creature, causing concern among his companions. However, Juzi gathers his courage and begins to counterattack the hardtail. Fortunately, he managed to activate the class upgrade, and this only happened because he ingested the alcoholic drink, which gave him extreme confidence. While the hero believes that his friend will become extremely efficient from now on, Juzi boasts, telling the creature to prepare, as it would be defeated. The opposite happens. He ends up being hit by the monster's tail. Kai rushes to help, throwing his daggers at the enemy while pulling his injured friend away. He thanks the muscular one for his effort, assuring him that next time he needs help, it will be he who supports him. Fortunately, the attacks had an effect. With each blow from the hero, the creature lost 2,000 life points. Due to the combo of skills suffered, the lizard becomes completely defenseless, allowing the muscular one to attack without even worrying about being defeated. Juzi's attacks do not stop. He increasingly delivers powerful strikes. The healer, noticing the change in her friend's behavior, asks if he is okay, and Kai replies that she should not worry. A few minutes later, the system notifies the defeat of the armored tail, while showing the muscular one's current level. Still drunk, he tells his friends that from now on, he will be number one in the world, but the effect of the drink wears off, and he faints. Everything happened as the MC had planned. The seer and he are happy with the success in battle. However, the healer remembers that something is wrong but cannot recall exactly what, and the other two feel it too. Poor Huang was in a panic for losing yet another wife. Therefore, he becomes angry with his captain and runs towards them, wanting to return the pain he feels in his heart. But fortunately for them, the healer manages to use a potion that makes the young man take a nap. She warns that she only used this type of thing because Huang thinks he is a lizard, and that is why they attack them. Then, the other two thank her, and the seer asks for the potion's recipe. After the battle, everyone goes to rest in a calm place, which will cease to be calm with Huang and Juzi suspiciously embracing. With the calmness present, the healer approaches Kai and asks if he would like to drink water, and he accepts. And he asks why she hasn't slept yet, and she explains that she can't believe all the things that happened today. Even the MC cannot believe that Huang's drink would have such a positive effect on his friend. And Huang, embarrassed, asks if Juzi will continue to evolve in the coming days. The MC replies that possibly yes, but Juzi needs to master the art of confidence, as this time he only managed to use his skill upgrade due to the drink. While the two were talking, Huang lets out a scream saying he will be number one in the world, making him change his mind, saying he needs to train even more, and she agrees. At dawn, the muscular one wakes up happy, saying that things will be different, as he feels better about himself. Meanwhile, the seer warns that the night before, Huang fell in love with a female caterpillar, and the young man starts to vomit, asking her to stop talking. Finally, they will be able to put their hands on the chest and earn the rewards, and Kai asks them to do it together. So, who asks the MC not to open the chest, as he is having bad luck, and instead, let Sunwon open it. The healer asks if she can really do that, and the protagonist replies that yes. As she begins to open it, the purple-haired girl reassures them not to worry, as she is sure good things will come out of it. Upon opening, they are surprised, as their reward is a phosphate ore that can be added to armor and weapons, valued at around 500k. Additionally, they obtained 17 kilograms of solar core, which can help in urban construction, valued at 100k. They also received 48g of blood crystal, which can be used for crafting, optimization, and upgrading equipment, worth 300k. And finally, 3 pieces of celestial bones, used to further enhance someone's talent, valued at 210k. However, the healer notices there is another secret mutant blood crystal, used for medicine, valued at 6kkk. The MC is impressed by the value they can gain from that item and also remembers the potion he took in the boss's room, which might be worth even more. Therefore, he informs his friends about what they just obtained and the potential value they can have when selling. While Jui is impressed, Kai feels sad about it, as he would have been more careful if he had known those values earlier. The items keep coming, and this time they received a sacred water, used for profession change at a level 20 healer. The drunkard warns that just 5 milliliters of that water can cost around 1 million, and they have more than 5 milliliters to sell. Thus, the muscular guy is happy for his friend, who will be able to improve her skills, and comments that it is rare to find this in a chest like that. The seer celebrates the rewards to the point of receiving a criticism from Huang, saying she looks like a greedy, selfish person. Then, she asks her friend to look at their captain, as his behavior is worse. The hero's greed is so great that he drools while calculating the amounts he will receive from selling, frightening his friends. After a day of training, the volcanic squad is strong enough to defeat a lair of armored lizards, and with the training, their synchronization increased. The only problem was his high alcohol consumption, as he continues to think of himself as the god of war. After 10 days, they managed to decimate a good portion of the lizards, allowing them to level up. Joy reached level 20, Juan also, and Juan reached level 12. Due to this, they take some time to relax and eat, while the seer asks Kai where they should go next. But suddenly, Sun Juan gets startled by a message she received, and the MC asks if she is okay. She replies that she received a message warning that a small group found a fallen corpse king and was caught off guard, thus causing the end of those people. It is explained that the corpse king is a completely terrifying monster that can appear and disappear at any moment, and is level 60. Fortunately for some adventurers, the corpse king is resting to recover from the damage of battle. Evidently, they comment that if those people had managed to defeat the king, they could be celebrating right now, but the opposite happened. With that, our hero asks Nuan if this news is recent. She replies that it is not, but soon some guilds will send people to investigate the case. She then realizes that the protagonist is eager to go hunt the corpse king. He explains that at this very moment, there must be many people trying to hit the jackpot. Therefore, he asks his team to gather, as they will go hunt the creature. Evidently, the healer and the drunkard are confident, stating that if the protagonist counts on them, they will leave immediately. Besides that stress, Jue also agrees, saying that the volcano team would be nothing without him and therefore, will go along with the group. Thus, everyone prepares for the journey in search of the corpse king. The next day, they are tired from the journey and arrive at a completely deserted and hot place. The healer warns that the trees there are about 20 years old and that if they reach 30, they could become fire spirits. While they were walking calmly, the MC, along with the muscular guy, notices something. Sibao recognizes those people. It is the Azuri team. He comments that the closer they get to the objective, the more teams will appear. As expected, 3 other groups had already arrived as well. Moreover, they must race against time if they want to have the luck to defeat the corpse king. Kai agrees with Ru, as there are indeed many people who heard the news and have already headed towards the location, in addition to others who were already in the vicinity. However, to everyone's misfortune, the healer begins to feel tired and cannot keep up with the group. Little by little, her vision starts to fade, but the MC appears beside her, asking her to rest and drink some water. Looking into the girl's eyes, the MC notices her unhappiness, as she knows she is the only one at a lower level in the group. She, not wanting to hold her friends back, insists that she is not tired. But the hero knows she is and says that if she isn't, then he is, and therefore he will rest for a moment. The rest of the group also agrees to stop, as they do not want to fight on an empty stomach. Moreover, the hero explains that the area where the undead king is located covers about 5 or 6 kilometers and still has several monsters without territory. Then, the seer asks what the plan is. He replies that he doesn't know, but they should stop and consider all the other factors before acting. The drunkard poses a question to Kai that goes as follows. With so many teams searching for the undead king, how will the volcano team be the first to find him? The healer, sad, can only lament. Meanwhile, Shuzi was talking to Hu, asking her to use her divination powers, but she says she cannot do that with such precision. Getting closer to the girl, the man says that the advantage they have is the fact that they have a seer on their team. Upon hearing this, she asks if he wants her to do a rain dance again. Then, he warns that the girl is forgetting that before being a seer, she was a feng shui expert and therefore knows exactly where the undead king is to regain his energy. Remembering, she warns that the undead king will be in a place with a lot of energy. Thus, the protagonist asks the girl to find out which spot on that peak has the most energy, as that is where the creature will be. She says she understands and will do it immediately. A few minutes pass, and our MC is worried about something to the point of not even noticing Kbum's arrival. Therefore, he explains to his friend that he was lost in thoughts about Huang, as she has some necessary materials to advance in class. Jue asks if he already knows the required recipe and if it is very rare. The MC replies that not really, but he doesn't know how to find it. While talking, he ends up having a flashback that, in the past, on the frozen island, he managed to discover an artifact that contained something, but it was not self-explanatory. Not understanding what it is about, the muscular man warns that maybe this is not a recipe but rather a riddle to be solved. None of them know what it is about, as that artifact is very confusing. Therefore, the muscular man mentions a place called Blazing Flame, where it is said that a tremendous heat takes over the area, even without any fire to cause it. However, while they were distracted, other people appear and call for Jiang. A group of people above level 40 says that it is an extreme coincidence to find him there. The muscular man asks if Kai has ever gotten into trouble with those people. He explains that he hasn't and that they must be part of the Huang family, which is why they called for him. Upon hearing such words, Bum prepares to defend his friend. However, the MC interrupts, telling him not to start a fight unnecessarily. The protagonist, introducing himself, asks what the problem is, and the man replies that the problem lies in the fact that the hero has defeated his friends several times. And getting closer, he calls the MC bold and questions whether he wishes for death, mocking those present. Then, Kbum comments that at no point did his friend pick a fight with the Huang family. In fact, it was the opposite, and that is why he ended up receiving what he deserved. This irritates the red-haired girl, who asks him not to interfere in a conversation between two people, causing him to protect his friend. With that, the silver replies that he is not bold, but if needed, he will take care of the annoying mosquitoes. Drawing his sword, the leader of the enemy team warns that he will make Kai feel all the suffering in the world for disrespecting his Huang family. There will be no option left but to battle against those people, as they have decided to act. But suddenly, along with the drunkard, the healer appears asking what Su Fixiang is doing and why he wants to pick a fight with them. The hero, seeing the girl running, wonders if she knows him. The man asks what she is doing there, as she belongs to the army and shouldn't be with Kai. Given that Su's sister is extremely strong, the subordinate asks his leader to reconsider and leave this battle for another occasion. So, the man listens to his soldier and puts away the swords, saying that the protagonist was lucky this time, but that there won't be a next time. With a serious expression, the MC watches that man leave the battlefield, while he himself makes threats, in addition to tearing his arms apart so that he never fights again. Finally, they retreat completely, calling the Volcano team cowards and questioning how the Falcon team could lose to losers like them. This irritates the muscular one, who wants to charge at them, but is stopped by Jiang, who asks for calm. Still, the hero asks Sun Huan if she knows Xiaofei and Yang. She replies that she knows a little, since that man lives in the military barracks. She also warns that his combat skill is exceptional, comparable to that of a successor. This frightens the drunk Jue and the protagonist himself. The girl explains that the military places great importance on the 4 initial stages from level 1 to 20, called apprentices, from 21 to 40, warriors, and from 41 to 60, above. The protagonist responds that he didn't expect she to already be at the successor level. Sun Huan adds that that man has a good friendship with the Huang family. In his thoughts, the hero feels a strong premonition that he will encounter that man again in the guild challenge. A few minutes later, the seer appears calling for the captain, saying she has managed to find the possible locations of the Corpse King. The first location is in Twilight, northwest of Liaoyang. The second is Chang'an Lake, south of Liao, rich in energy and close to the main city. And the third location is below the Liao mountain range, to the west. The muscular one suggests that the Corpse King is possibly trying to return to its lair to regain strength and that, therefore, they should go to Twilight. The hero, however, warns that they will go to Banshee, startling his teammates. He explains that they won't go to Twilight because there are already too many teams there, and even if the Corpse King is present, they would return empty-handed. As for the lake, many people must have gone there initially because it is close to the city, but it doesn't have much energy. Banshee, on the other hand, would be a convenient location for the Corpse King, as it could hide and be forgotten by explorers who would be busy elsewhere. 2 hours later, the Volcano team heads to the chosen location. For some reason, the muscular one is scared, The drunk warns that since that territory is very large, they need to find the creature quickly and defeat it before other teams arrive. One of the possible hiding places for the Corpse King could be in a cave or tomb. Therefore, the healer hands out a poisoning potion to everyone, saying it can be used to resist the poison and not die from it. Thus, the protagonist asks everyone to drink the potion and start looking for caves and tombs in the area. Persia is already tired of walking and therefore asks if they can rest, but the rest of the group asks him to walk faster. He gets scared and asks them to stop joking, and the seer, wanting to scare him even more, says that maybe the monster is already healed and hungry. This makes the man even more frightened and he starts to run, while Kai asks who not to do that anymore. While running, he trips over a stone and falls. Looking around, he is startled by what he sees and asks the rest of his group to look closely as well. The seer, observing more carefully, warns that it is an abandoned tomb and that they can hardly notice its presence. Therefore, the drunk questions whether a corpse king could fit in there, since the tomb is too small. However, suddenly, the area around the gravestone begins to crack, causing Kai to tell his friends to back away. Everyone starts to run, while the hero climbs a tree and asks Joy to face things head-on, while the MC prepares to attack. He asks not to push things too hard and to retreat in any case. Gradually, the king rises from the tomb. Now, the creature has fully risen and its power is over 8,000. Then, the protagonist again asks everyone to be careful. The first to receive a glare is Joy, who is trembling all over, asking for that thing to stay away from him. At first, the king uses its sonic power to try to inflict damage, and seeing that he couldn't withstand the pressure for long, Kbum pulls out a beer to drink and gather courage. After drinking his lifting brew, he starts to feel confident, while shouting that he is the strongest in the world. The fight intensifies even more. Each blow manages to take a bit of the boss's life, but Zoe continues to be scared. The friends, hidden in the trees, realize that the muscular man's sword is not causing significant injuries. The protagonist also notices this and asks him not to advance immediately, but the boss is already preparing and strikes the young man directly. Another attack follows, but this time Kai positions himself to defend him. For a moment, the flames spread, allowing the group to hurriedly pull Klum away. The seer, looking at the fallen man, comments that this time they were lucky, as the undead king is already somewhat injured and will soon turn to dust. However, the girl with purple hair, observing the healer, notices something strange and begins to worry. The hero faces the creature when the system notifies that all damage dealt will be converted into healing, in addition to reducing the damage received. The wounds on the creature's chest begin to heal. However, there is no time for pauses, as the MC receives another attack, retreating and narrowly dodging. For a moment, Kai thinks about everything he has done so far, realizing that, despite the blows, little damage has actually been inflicted on the undead king. At that moment, the healer shouts for him to pierce the creature's heart, as that is the only way to defeat it. Knowing this, the hero prepares to finish off the enemy, who is now advancing towards Sun One. The MC runs after him, trying to save his friend. In truth, the boss was just deceiving everyone, as he quickly turns against the protagonist, grabbing him and inflicting intense pain. Trapped, all that remains for the hero is suffering, as his bones begin to slowly break. He knows he needs to act fast to escape this situation. Still being held by the creature, the protagonist leaves his fate in the hands of his friends. The seer, along with the muscular man, tries to do everything possible to help their captain. The undead king releases a cloud of poison, while Kbum runs towards him, causing the seer to warn him to be careful, as he must not inhale it. It is explained that upon contact with the mist, many adventurers end up dying. Some are lucky enough to survive, but a large part of their bodies is corroded. She knows that even if Shui does not die immediately, he will suffer severe damage to his body. This frightens her even more, given the power of the undead king, who fights on equal footing even when injured. Even though he fights head-on with the creature, there won't be much he can do, as there is an absurd difference between them. The drunkard emerges as a hero, declaring that he will not allow anyone to harm his captain, as he has never bowed his head to anyone in all his years of life. Joy would try to stop him, knowing the danger, but it is she who ends up being stopped by the seer. She asks the girl not to do anything that puts her life at risk, as she is the team's healer, the last wall. The seer warns that from now on, the girl must protect herself, while she herself goes to fight the undead king. Running, she asks Sununu not to follow her, as the poison spreads more and more, and she needs to get close enough to use the rain dance. The healer, crying, feels useless on the battlefield, questioning what she should do, as her friends are fighting their fears. This situation reminds her of the past, when she was young and always protected by her sister. She also remembers her father, who sacrificed himself on the battlefield to save his friends. Since that day, she vowed to be the best healer possible for everyone. One of the steps to becoming who she wanted to be was taken when she managed to join the army, thanks to her good performance in the initial test. However, after achieving that goal, everything began to crumble, as she was ranked very low. This made her question whether, in the future, she could truly be an excellent companion to have by one's side. Back on the battlefield, Huang does everything he can to help his friends, boasting about his strength. But for the girl, nothing has ended. She is in an existential crisis, questioning whether she deserves to be there, whether she can truly become a healer. The undead king spreads the poison mist even further. Huang, along with Bum, does everything possible to save their captain. With the little strength he has left, the hero calls out to his two friends while the healer watches, crying. She is desperate, as Kai's voice is growing weak. Suddenly, the two friends are thrown far away. She runs towards the boys while observing their injuries, which only lasted a minute in the mist. Conjuring her healing magic, she tries to remain calm, as her priority is to save Fuzi and Huang. The poor souls are engulfed in severe wounds, while suddenly the sky begins to thunder. So, she remembers that her friend had said she would use the rain dance to lessen the spell of the dead king. At that exact moment, Hu is doing everything he can to help his team, while his captain continues to be held by the enemy. The difficulties our protagonist faces are great, as he can barely breathe, and his body is in pain. Moreover, he feels guilty, as he was very confident, having achieved great feats on the ice island. Our hero blames himself, as initially, the dead king was not even part of his plans, yet he still brought all his friends to that dangerous place. While she was distracted in thoughts and guilt, the seer suffers an attack, nearly being unmade. With that, she runs to help her friend, while again our hero is blaming himself for overestimating the enemy, making him question his strength. He closes his eyes, perhaps just accepting fate and thus giving up on the future. But his friends do not. They still stand tall, no matter the situation. This time, the attacks actually had an effect on the dead king, as our protagonist managed to free himself from the enemy's grasp. With that, the MC creates the motivation from the ashes, saying he cannot give up again, as he has a family at home waiting for him. He looks around and sees all those people doing whatever it takes to defeat the dead king. The damage he suffered was strong enough to make him writhe in pain on the ground, while he breathes heavily. Therefore, the girl with purple hair runs towards the MC, asking what they should do, as Shuzi, Hu, and Huang will soon be exhausted. Kai first asks the girl to calm down, as he feels like his bones are broken and needs her to examine him quickly. He looks at her, saying he fully trusts her, making her cry even more. She responds that she will do whatever it takes to help them. While they were recovering, the drunkard and the muscular guy were caught by the dead king and were about to be swallowed, but the hero appears at the last second. With just a kick, he manages to free them from the evil claws. Due to the kick on the monster, the protagonist manages to save his two friends and leaves the rest in the hands of the healer. And then he heads into battle, while remembering the conversation he had with the girl, who gives him the phoenix tear. With that, she explains that by taking that potion, his body will regain strength for 1 minute, but soon after the effect wears off, the person will faint, no matter the situation they are in. With that, Kai takes the phoenix potion and warns that he only needs 1 minute to finish off that creature. The dead king is currently being beaten, while the MC asks where all the bravado from before has gone. But the king counters, using his poison mist again, and the protagonist heads towards the forest, seeking a safe distance to attack. Upon finding it, he prepares to use all his power, while dodging some attacks and activating his phantom form, questioning if the boss really thinks he will catch him twice with the same trick of using poison. With the smoke screen, Kai throws his flaming daggers, hiding them from the enemy's view, who ends up being caught by surprise, and going backward, trying to dodge, but the MC's flames also appear alongside, causing the monster to search for the protagonist. But while it was distracted with that, the daggers return towards it. It barely manages to dodge, although it was scratched by one of them, but that is just a distraction. For at that exact moment, the hero appears behind the dead king, throwing his weapons and asking if he is this slow in everyday life. This time, the little daggers manage to pierce the monster, but as a consequence, Kai ends up getting caught, making his colleague panic again. But all that scene was part of the MC's plan. Therefore, he warns that he would not be captured twice like an idiot. In fact, our hero was keeping one of the daggers to stab directly into the chest of the dead king. As he fell, the effect of the flames began to spread. Gradually, he started to faint due to the effect of the phoenix wearing off. But along with him, the creature also fell. His friend approached worriedly, and, already conjuring her magic, began to reflect. Seeing the 3 daggers in the tree, she thought the protagonist had missed, but it was all part of the plan. They were necessary to hit the unprotected part of the back. However, while she was distracted in thoughts, the dead king began to move, making her question if it had really died. Huang was scared, but she remembered that Kai had left everything in her hands. So, she gathered the courage to attack the undead king while she still had the chance. She was already prepared to plunge her sword into the monster's heart again, but suddenly, he awoke from his slumber and tried to attack her. With difficulty, she managed to dodge, asking if the undead king really thought he would escape. The healer, filled with anger at seeing all her friends injured, activated her higher instincts and advanced toward the creature's heart. Apparently, she succeeded in defeating the boss, as a day had already passed since the incident and everyone was gathered. The girl was bandaging the protagonist and asked him not to move too much for 3 days. He stared at her, making her blush and wonder if there was something wrong with her face. The hero replied that he was just lost in thought, admiring how incredibly she had evolved more and more, which left her speechless. Despite this, she felt sad because in the battle against the undead king, she could only watch her friends get hurt. As being a healer, she couldn't do much about it. Jiang Kai asked her to stop underestimating herself, reminding her that in recent days he had focused only on Jue and Huang to level up. Moreover, he recalled when she had enough courage to face the Falcon team because her friend was being humiliated. And without hesitation, she was the one who dealt the final blow to the undead king. Therefore, he said she should be proud of her own achievements. Even if she didn't realize it, everyone there needed her. She felt happy and began to cry. Her friends appeared, saying that if it weren't for her, they wouldn't be alive and healthy to celebrate. The drunkard thanked her, knowing that this girl was extremely useful for them to continue fighting on the demon planet. Crying even more, she thanked everyone, knowing she wouldn't be there without them. 2 hours later, the protagonist asked if they were ready to open the treasure chest. Kai warned that it would be the first opening, as there could be first-class items, and even a high chance of finding a mutation artifact. Upon opening it, he was impressed. At that very moment, he was holding the Blade of Fiery Fury, a level 80 weapon worth over 350,000 coins. Unfortunately, none of them met the necessary requirements to use it, so they all agreed to sell it and make more money to help buy things. There was still another item that caught his attention, and he asked Sun Wan to check it. Using the system, she discovered that there was no information, as no one had ever received that as a reward. Fortunately, the girl had an identification card, something extremely useful during the army days when encountering unknown items. Upon using it, the necromancer armor was revealed, granting 24 defense, 24 strength, 33 agility, and 71 spiritual power, in addition to having special effects. The muscular one was completely shocked, as he had never seen anything like it. The protagonist was also perplexed. The effects of Death's Mercy were extremely powerful. Additionally, Special Effect 2, Necromancer State, increases damage against enemies that use sound and neurotoxic powers. Special Effect 3, although not very useful in combat, can cause torment to severely injured enemies. 25 minutes later, Sun Wan remembered that, despite the quality, the items were not suitable for them. The best option would be to sell them. Then, the muscular one, with a sharp gaze, found something inside the chest that no one had noticed, a high-level ring, and he asked the healer to identify it. Moreover, inside the chest was also the development card, a unique item for the protagonist's profession. The goddess of the system appeared to explain that this divine card is part of a set of 9 cards, one of which is the development card. She revealed that upon reaching the state of transcendence or frightening, the adventurer could bring the item into the real world. This scared Kai, as the card was made exclusively for the Glamour profession, with no level restrictions. He also understood that by using the Phantom Hand to increase the card's accuracy, the damage would be double what it currently dealt. But the explanation wasn't over yet. The Death card would increase his 4 main attributes by 20%, in addition to granting 50% penetration and plus 15% critical. That already seemed powerful enough, but the goddess also revealed the special effects. One of them is that the card will automatically attack the target up to 50 times, dealing 50% damage. The effect Island of Gods allows the card to spin at high speed with the tip at the center, causing continuous damage to the target. The card cannot be destroyed under any circumstances and can be summoned and revoked at the user's will. Even so, the protagonist finds it strange. After all, what exactly are these divine letters and how could there be 8 others besides his? However, as the joy of the poor lasts little, behind the protagonist is a team of assassins. Therefore, he asks his team to leave immediately. Already in the city of Xingyong, Captain Wei was admiring the view when his subordinate appears, warning that a country has discovered a portal. He is worried, as this is not common, since a specific profession is required to enter something like that. But in recent years, some countries have been able to find portals one after another. The only problem is that these portals lead to a single destination called Lost Earth. However, it is completely unknown, as its location changes every 6 months. The second problem is that this place has lost ruins, completely unexplored zones, unknown treasures, and advanced class materials. And finally, only low-level adventurers can enter Lost Earth, and the most intriguing part is that when a human enters, the system announces an event. The captain's subordinate is worried, as so far her country has not managed to discover a single portal, while 49 other countries have achieved this feat. Not to mention that only the countries classified in this event can explore the lost ruins and the treasures that will change the fate of nations. Therefore, while she was speaking, she questions whether her captain is listening. Calm as always, he puts out his cigarette and asks her to list all the guilds of the nations. 3 days passed, and the protagonist walks through the city calmly, while his team is worried if he managed to sell. He responds to his team that he managed to sell and also bought the profession transfer materials. On one hand, the seer is happy to have made a lot of money. On the other, the drunkard complains that the more they earn, the more they spend. The healer informs Kai that, a few days ago, she heard that the military had planned for something like this in the future, as they summoned leading representatives. While they were talking, extras pass in the background talking about the upcoming guild challenge. With that, the muscular one remembers that the Huang family will participate in this event, hence the need to put them in their place. Before anything else, they need to join a guild first, and the healer asks if the MC has already managed to join one. He replies that it is a secret. Now in the guild area, the protagonist presents the place, and the muscular one questions if this is really it. They ask this because the place seems deserted, as there is not a single person, and it doesn't even have a name. It is then that the healer quickly notices that, in fact, Kai is planning to create his own guild. Without even responding, the young man takes a card from his pocket and places it in the lock, which begins to open, and he informs her that she is right. Gradually, the gate opens, allowing them to behold the beautiful view of the house. Then, the protagonist welcomes his team to their new guild called Gods of Olympus. Kbum is happy to see that his friend has taken a big step. Moreover, the seer comments that she never even imagined this could happen. The drunkard asks how much was paid for the place, while Sunwon just laughs. To start with, the protagonist had already thought of everything, in addition to having bought all the necessary materials to register the guild and evolve their classes. He only did this because, at the beginning, he was rejected by everyone, leading him to create his own guild. Gradually, the system completes the entire process to register the guild, while they celebrate now having a home to call their own. The next day, the muscular one was the first to manage to change professions, now becoming a warrior. He managed to gain a second talent and increase his attributes, prompting Kai to ask which ones. The talent he gained is called Omnipotent Warrior, allowing him to obtain a 10% attribute increase every time he levels up. The seer, although happy, feels a bit of envy, as now Joy will evolve like water. He then interrupts the girl, saying that this is not all, as during combat he can allocate his attributes wherever he wants. This impresses both the protagonist and Hu, as it is an extremely strong ability. While they were talking, one appears in the background looking sad. Then, they ask what is wrong with the boy. He replies that, despite having succeeded in changing professions, he still remains a drunkard and gained a talent called Wine Festival. The protagonist tries to console the boy, saying that, due to his profession, it is already a miracle to have gained points and talents. However, Hu asks the man what the Wine Festival means. He explains that this state can further stimulate the subconscious, allowing it to remain balanced in relation to sobriety. In the end, all that remains for him is that he might become more out of control than he was before, thus frightening his friends. At the moment, they are worried because an hour has passed, and there is still no sign of Sunwon. However, just as they said this, the girl appears outside, trembling all over. Everyone thinks things did not go as planned and tries to cheer up their colleague, but Kai interrupts, asking them to let the young woman speak. What no one expected is that everything went well, as she managed to acquire a talent called Toxin Analysis. None of them believe what they have just heard. She explains that with this ability, she can increase the effectiveness of medications by 10%, as well as strengthen poisons by 50%. The drunk then questions whether she will become a poisoning expert. She replies that not necessarily, as medicine is also included in this. In any case, the results were good, but they should not let success go to their heads, as the other teams in the guild challenge are even stronger. Then, the protagonist informs the team that in the coming days, they will work hard to level up even more, and everyone agrees. 7 days pass and they do not stop training. The muscular one feels stronger than ever, reaching level 25, while Suno is at level 24. The seer reaches level 38, and says that she becomes more proficient in the rain dance every day, and the drunk has managed to reach level 25. However, while they were happy, Kai notices that the tournament brackets have been released. Coincidence or not, the first opponent of the Guild Gods of Olympus will be Huang. The seer comments that possibly the Huang family pulled some strings to make this happen right at the beginning. Automatically, The muscular one gets angry, wanting to go to the army to question what happened, but Huang stops him. The protagonist then asks everyone to remain calm, as he has wanted a match against that man since the beginning. Our hero will use this opportunity to show that he is not to be trifled with. The next day, everyone is in the arena that will be the stage for a battle of the century. The audience cheers as the presenter asks the first two guilds to come to the stage. Clearly, the crowd is in favor of Huangda, urging him to create a massacre. The man in the fish helmet knows that soon these people will be in their rightful place. One of his subordinates comments that she is bored, but he quickly reprimands her to change her behavior. Meanwhile, Huangda and his team wonder where Jiang Kai is, as he has not yet come to the stage. Being foolish as always, Huangda starts shouting, calling the protagonist a coward. But he did not expect what was about to happen. The protagonist, along with his team, emerges towards the stage. Finally, everyone is gathered on stage, while the protagonist asks who the coward is now. Meanwhile, in the army area, the scientists have already adjusted everything necessary to evaluate the performance of Sun Wan and Jue. Next to him was Lu Jun, who asks the man to add another person to his evaluation. Additionally, the inspector on site informs that this was an order from Captain Wei, and the man asks who the other person is. Ludmila informs that this person is the leader of the volcano squad. However, what they did not expect was that the system could not evaluate him. The scientist is perplexed, as all the other members of the protagonist team have evolved at an absurd speed. The healer sister asks how this is possible. How can all the people who are with Kai evolve so quickly? For the redhead, this is no surprise at all. Returning again to the battle site, the presenter calls for the audience's attention. She explains that once the match begins, either side can leave the protection field, forfeit, or surrender. With everyone having understood these rules, she starts the fight. The only command Huangda gives is to attack all of the hero's friends. With that, everyone charges towards the protagonist. He quickly begins to organize his team, saying that he and the muscular one will handle the attack, while Wan will protect the other two. The first is determined to show everyone there that the protagonist is not to be messed with, but obviously, the first to be scared would be the muscular one. His captain tells him not to slack off and to just listen to his commands. The former captain of Zwa is in the stands, along with his members, urging Kbum to man up, questioning whether he will actually be useful. What they did not expect was that the man would pull out a beer can and drink. With that, they start to question whether he is an alcoholic, but they did not expect what was to come. As the men from Divinho approached him, he unleashed a blow that cracked the ground and startled everyone, causing the extras to fearfully question whether the information they had was true. Returning to the muscular one, he was heading towards the enemies to put an end to that little game, while our hero sighed, knowing that in this form, he wouldn't be able to control his friend, leaving only one. But he noticed something passing by him and the girls screaming, as the drunkard had consumed alcohol. A bald man, upon noticing the presence of the drunkard, warned his friends to be careful and look after him. But what he didn't expect was for Wan to charge at him, using his shield. The first was hit by the chubby guy, but he continued to fall in love with anyone. The man managed to throw the boy off him, causing him to fall near the protagonist. As always, he wouldn't give up on his love, leaving the other extras frightened. The woman with green hair commented to her brother that Prota's team was crazy. Meanwhile, the two girls were worried, as they didn't want to gain a bad reputation due to the two drunkards in the group. Activating his ocular power, the protagonist could finally focus on the other bolts. With that, Shui charged at two other extras using his power, Earth Tremor. Unfortunately, one managed to dodge, thanks to his quick agility, and went to counterattack Kbum. Thus, the MC warned his friend that someone was attacking from behind while throwing his daggers to help. But he was stopped by a guy using a shield, who stood all pompous, thinking it worked. Meanwhile, a blonde boy was going to attack the two girls, but the seer began to conjure her power. As she conjured, the battlefield started snowing, causing ice shards to fly towards the boy, who didn't expect it. She was pleased with the strength she had, but someone appeared to help that boy from before, and one of those shards ended up coming back to hit her. Madara told the blonde never to consider him a teammate again, as he was caught off guard by an obvious attack. This infuriated the swordsman, who charged towards the two girls, saying he would take care of them personally. What they didn't expect was that right behind him was the strongest muscular one, attacking them from behind. Once again, they narrowly escaped and would first take care of Jue, who was in a frenzy. Returning to Ruan, he was still in love with the man who was trying to warn him about his sexuality. The bald man, to attack the drunkard, needed to find a way to destroy the shield, as the defense was too high with it. With that, the chubby guy ran away, asking his wife not to rush, leaving the boy furious and using his spears. The spears were blocked by the protagonist, who warned Juan to be careful, and for some reason, the hero was tired. This prompted them to inform Huang De about Kai's condition, and automatically the jealous brother began to conjure his magic, called stone magnetism. This ability allowed him to chain the seer and the healer, making them wonder what was happening. Not only them, but the muscular one as well, and of course Prota, who couldn't use his magic. Conjuring another spell, they walked towards the MC, who tried to use his daggers, but nothing worked. Then, the bald blonde explained that the spermagenetic stone was made specifically to deal with the protagonist, and asked what he would do to win now. But our hero just smiled while grabbing his other weapons and asked them not to celebrate too soon. At that moment, the armored bald man questioned why his power wasn't working against the other daggers. With no way out, he felt compelled to draw a shield to protect himself, warning that he would show true despair to Jiang. Lu Jun, seeing that, was startled, as that shield required a high level of skill and attributes, since it was not something common. The inspector appeared in shock, as she didn't expect to see something like this today, and the redhead was worried about what might happen to the hero. Additionally, the girl was concerned about Sun Wan's fate. A simple order was given again, which consisted of everyone wiping out the Vulcan team. He asked them to do it calmly and inflict a lot of pain. Initially, they opted to attack the martial artist, and Piccolo wanted to finish off Huang, who had become known as a woman. Unfortunately, the former captain of Sun Wan and Jui lost hope, as the level between them was completely different. Moreover, the man in the fish armor and the girl with green hair also lost their hopes in the Vulcan team. Returning to De, he boasts, believing he has already won the fight, as he and his team are unaffected by magnetism. Therefore, he activates his power again, which ends up pulling the healers and seers' weapons closer, while he shouts that he wants to see Kai go through all the pain in the world, just as he did with the Huang family. With his daggers in hand, the protagonist declares that he will never surrender to anyone. With that, he warns him to stop creating false hopes. What he did not expect was that the Prota would have an ace up his sleeve, causing the blonde man to feel fear. Not just him, but everyone else is trying to figure out what that card Kai just drew is. He then remembers that, upon creating that card, he discovered a new classification of rank SSS. He is startled, and the celestial deity warns him about the unique effects that card possesses. Back in the match, the hero feels confident, as he had prepared everything from the beginning and comments that he will not be affected by magnetism. Now activating the power of that card, the young man warns Huang that from now on, he will beg to be quickly unlived, as he will not endure all the pain he will suffer. Then, the bald blonde becomes worried, as he does not know what that is, but suddenly he is hit hard. Not even his shield can withstand the force of that weapon for long. In a matter of seconds, the man's shield is shattered, sending him flying away. As the envious bald man lies unconscious, the weapons are freed for Kai's friends, allowing them to use them. Finally, Jui and the rest of the group can fight on equal footing, as nothing can stop them now. The drunk continues to call Torito his wife, leaving him sad. The audience is scared, wondering how a simple card can destroy such a powerful shield, now questioning the protagonist's strength. In his thoughts, he questions how he can lose to someone like the Prota, saying he cannot let that happen. His group, seeing that their captain is in danger, prepares to save him, abandoning the fight with Jui and the drunk. As promised before, the MC will make the bald man feel all the pain in the world so that he never messes with him again. Davizinho is worried, as his end is near and he gets hit in the middle of the chest. The inspector cannot believe what she is seeing with her own eyes, as it is out of the ordinary. Back to the bald man, he begs Kai to stop doing this to him. This infuriates the MC, as even in the face of unliving, the young man has not learned his lesson. With that, he activates the special effect of the card, which will cause 50% more damage and will not allow the man to unlive, and the blows will continue in sequence, making him spit ketchup. The viewers are terrified, as they cannot believe the brutal scene they are witnessing. Our hero will make that foolish man feel all the pain and despair in the world. As for him, unliving other people is extremely common. Then, Davizinho begins to plead for his life, asking not to be harmed, but it is already too late. At that exact moment, the Prota activates special effect number 3, allowing his victim to enter a frenzied state before dying. All the bravado of the fool is now gone. All he can feel is pain, his body being cut and broken into several pieces. He begs for help, as he cannot endure so much pain anymore, questioning why he will play for Vasco. Crying for his life, he kneels and begs, asking the man to stop, but the other responds that Davy has done too many bad things to plead for anything. Therefore, for the bald blonde, all that is left is to ask to be unlived quickly, as he can no longer bear such torment. The inspector, witnessing the whole scene, wonders why Kai does not just end the man's life already. Lu Jun also cannot comprehend. All he can think about is what kind of weapon the MC possesses. Returning to the battlefield, that young man crawls, begging for mercy, saying he will never mistreat the protagonist again and asks to play for Vasco. Soon, Unfortunately, that will not happen until the father of that man stands up and pleads for mercy. The leader of the Huang family knows that this is all part of the hero's plans, as he wants to humiliate him publicly. But he has no choices left, as his son is in dire straits. Thus, he stands up and calls for the hero, who questions what he can do for the man. So, the little red mustache asks him to stop immediately, promising never to touch the protagonist's family again. And the MC questions why he should believe those words, while continuing to punish the bald man. To save his children, he swears by the name of his guild and, if he wants, can sign an agreement in front of the army to prove his word. Jiang agrees but reminds the man that if he does anything to his family, he will destroy the entire Huang guild, one by one, while finishing off Davazinho. After finishing, the son asks if the red-haired father really understood, leaving him furious with what he is witnessing. The bearded man orders one of his subordinates to return to the land to assist his son, and lets his true feelings of revenge show, asking Kai to wait, as he will be back. Our hero was calm until he felt the effects of the high consumption of the abilities he had activated, but he couldn't rest, as there were still 4 enemies to defeat. He does everything to stay on his feet, for as long as his presence is there, the enemies will remain off guard, allowing Jue to attack the opponents while calling them cowards for hiding behind a shield. Without mercy, the muscular man attacks with all his strength, releasing a terrifying aura, and with the attack, he sends the man flying away, who wonders how someone can become so strong in a fraction of seconds. The 2 girls know that Kbum's strength has only increased so much because he can reallocate his attributes whenever he wants, but nothing prevents him from being attacked by 2. However, it doesn't matter, as he managed to dodge and appear behind the little donkeys, who are surprised, preparing to wipe out the fools and calling them useless, which impresses his former captain, who cannot recognize Jue's strength. Meanwhile, Huang continues to chase Torito, calling him his wife, and the bald man turns around, ready to counterattack. But he knows he can't do that, as the hero is still there and, therefore, he cannot focus on the fat drunk. In the meantime, the muscular man continues to attack his rivals relentlessly, and they are scared, as they do not know why the MC has not moved until now. That's when they realize that perhaps the hero is tired and exhausted from using so many abilities. So, they become a bit hopeful with the glimmer of hope given to them. On the inspector's side, she is happy with the results Jue has been showing throughout the match. With that, she rejoices knowing that Team Vulcan will win this battle, but Lu Jun thinks otherwise, as Kai is out of the game due to high mana consumption. The healer also finds it strange that her captain hasn't moved after defeating Devi, and the red-haired Lu concludes by saying that now the other 4 have the opportunity of a lifetime. Indeed, their enemies will take advantage of this to attack the MC and his team, as he cannot do anything more. 2 minutes will pass, and Jue is gradually getting tired, and with that, his opponents notice a variation in his power, and so they feel more confident, as they just need to find the right moment to attack and, as a bonus, they don't have to worry about Kai. The battle continues, with enemies asking for more rounds, while Kbum uses the maximum of his power. The young man, in his mind, decides to attack the unprotected side of the muscular man, causing the blonde and the armored one to worry, as in their minds Jue is going to lose. What they didn't expect was that the MC would return to normal, counterattacking them by surprise and using his flaming daggers, dealing over 2,000 damage. Amidst the smoke, the Prota lands calmly, and his opponents question how it is possible for him to have returned to the battle. Then, we have a brief flashback of the conversation the hero had the night before with Sue, and to start, she asks why he is so worried. He explains that he is worried about what might happen tomorrow, as they will do everything to end him, but that will only happen if he loses his daggers. The girl then asks if he has a plan to get around this, and he replies that he found something in the treasure chest perfect for the occasion. But the only problem is that after using this weapon, there will be side effects, reducing their chances of winning. Wanting to help her friend, Nguyen warns that she has an untested medicine that can restore his power to 50% for a short period, and ends by explaining that when used, he will be paralyzed for a minute, and it will only take effect if the user has used all the mana they have. She doesn't feel confident with this pill, as 1 minute on a battlefield can change the fate of everything, but in Kai's view, she is amazing and has restored his confidence. The MC is standing still, watching his friends struggle against the enemies, and decides to take the medicine. Back in the present, he is ready to help his team, and the drunk continues to confuse the young man's sexuality. But before those two could get to know each other better, Jue appears behind Torito and defeats him with a single blow. He asks the fool to remember who Kbum is forever, while Juan cries for losing yet another wife. In fury, he asks Musculoso why he did that, and he replies that there are no reasons not to. Then, Juan decides that Jue will be his wife from now on. Unfortunately, the drunk is smelling something horrible, as is the rest of the group. With the drunk lying on the ground, The protagonist is happy because Huang had prepared potions to help in advance. With that, he asks how the two are doing, and they ask him not to worry because they are fine. Thus, each of the enemies begins to disappear, and the presenter is about to declare victory for Team Vulcan, but Bum is going crazy, scaring not only the presenter but the rest of his team, who tries to stop him at all costs. Then, in fear, he declares that Team Vulcan has won and asks them to show up at 8 a.m. Musculoso is squeezing his captain, saying that he will never leave him alone, but feeling embarrassed, Kai and his team start to leave. In a matter of seconds, he begins to realize the strength of all the members of Team Vulcan, questioning how a drunk can defeat someone at level 40. The girl with green hair says she understands why Xiao wants to bring them to watch Team Vulcan's match. Lu Jun and the inspector are impressed with the strength of the protagonist and his team and can't wait to see their evaluation results. The scientist shows that Xue is at level SS, but Su has remained at her usual rank without any evolution. The girl and the redhead are once again impressed because soon Musculoso will be able to enter the Temple of the God of War and undergo evolution training. It is explained that each country created temples to develop their soldiers, allowing them to train to showcase their full potential. There are only 2 ways to enter something like this, and most people can only do so with the evaluation conducted by the army. The other way to enter is also through the army, but being handpicked after reaching the required level. Once again, the impressed girl with purple hair comments that in all her years, she has never seen anyone enter the Temple of the God of War in just 1 year. Moreover, the redhead with glasses asks the scientist what Kai's ranking is, and he responds that it cannot be measured, startling the two of them. The reason is that the protagonist's attributes are completely uncontrollable, exceeding those of level 20 and even surpassing level 40 individuals. It doesn't end there, as in a single attack, the MC managed to deal over 24,000 damage, and when he used his card, the system gave a reading error. But the fact is that from early on, the hero unleashed all his power from the start, giving freedom to his team members. For now, if they were to give him a rank, it would be level D, and then they thank Professor Lee and inform him that they will report this to Commander Wei. Su's sister questions whether someone like Kai can be just a rank D, and Lu Jun simply replies no. With that, she gets angry, asking why he didn't object earlier regarding the mentioned level. He explains to the girl that possibly Lee's evaluation is not wrong, but rather the entire assessment process is flawed, saying it is foolish to evaluate someone with such a precarious system since they cannot determine Kai's level. Just like Commander Wei, Lu Jun is anxious to see what the hero will show in the upcoming matches. The next day, they are near a pharmacy, and Hu asks them to stop and buy medicine. Upon entering, the attendant greets them and asks what they want, and the seer asks if they have magic mushrooms. Then the attendant replies that they do and asks her to come closer to take a look. Meanwhile, our hero, looking to the side and not seeing Sunwan, wonders where she is, and upon finding her, he is surprised to see that there are also recipes for poisons there. She is worried that she hasn't found many orbs for sale recently, and the man there replies that the last one found was in an aquatic place with a god-level boss in the Taiping Mountains. Our hero questions whether people have actually been going to that location, and then the bearded man says yes, since that place is mysterious, sparsely populated, and dangerous. With that, he asks the girl to give up the idea of using a green orb and to look for other options, warning her that she won't have the capacity to use something like that. Being curious, she asks the man what the effects of the green poison are. He explains that the green poison affects the person's armor, and when inhaling the smoke, it ends up subduing them. But for it to work, the target needs to have a wet body. At first, they ran a great risk by inhaling the smoke, and they also need to rely on the luck factor of having a river nearby. Obviously, for the two sick ones, this wouldn't be a problem, and that's why they decide to take the poison. This leaves the man confused, as he just warned them about something important. In any case, it is already night, and we are in the hospital where Huang Devi is located. His father is in the background, watching his son while remembering the doctor's words about the treatment he needs to undergo and the psychological damage he has suffered. Serves the Huang family right. They wanted to meddle with someone they shouldn't have, and now they are paying the price for it. He becomes furious seeing his children in this situation and punches the wall while blaming Kai for everything. Revealing his fury, he remembers that he promised not to touch the MC's family but didn't promise anything about touching him. While he was distracted, someone appears asking if he called for him and questions whether the conversation will be about the guild challenge. Over the days, some teams have been dropping out of their battles because they witnessed something horrible in the protagonist's fight against A. But there were some who wanted to confront him and only managed to try because they were defeated effortlessly. And finally, Kai and his team are in the top 16. Already at night, however, on the same day, the seer informs her captain that the information about tomorrow's match has been released. On the system screen, they are congratulated for reaching the top 16 and that their next opponents are the Falcon team from the Black Turtle, and they are to be at the location by 8 a.m. This gives the muscular one a chill, as he has a feeling he has met those people from the Falcon team before. Then our hero explains to his friends that Su Feixiang is the leader of the Falcon team and they encountered them in the Valley of Kings, and that this little group belongs to the Huang family. They remember that this group had bothered the protagonist, and so they decide to take them down, but they must be careful since the Falcon team is no joke. Being the children of executives, they have top-notch equipment and are obviously strong, so they must act with caution. Su also warns that the Falcon team has excellent teamwork and the ability to adapt to various situations. She reminds the MC about Su Feixiang's agility and strength, asking Kai to be careful, and he agrees with the girl. On the day of the event, the spectators are commenting that they will witness a good fight between the best teams of the tournament so far. Half of the audience is apprehensive about the fact that Su could be Kai's nemesis during this tournament. At first, the blue-haired one tries to instill fear with his gaze while asking if the hero has forgotten what he said before. The protagonist stops his friend because Zhui is currently irritated, asking the man in front of him not to be arrogant to the point of burning his own tongue. Thus, the MC asks them to stop talking and let their fists do the talking. Then the presenter starts the event, and the battle begins after the 10-second countdown. Some are scared, others apprehensive about what they will witness as the countdown decreases every second. One of the people cheering for the victory of the Vulcan squad is the blonde girl and the former captain of Zhui and Su. Finally, the countdown reaches 0, and the battle begins with each member heading towards their opponents. Taking a defensive position, the seer tells her friends to stay alert and be careful. Then Kai is the first to attack with his daggers, making Hu initially think he has surprised his opponents. However, what they didn't expect was that those fools would be able to block the hero's strikes. And with that, Su warns that he will show them how to fight. Upon realizing that those attacks were stopped, the healer and the drunkard are in shock, but it is not enough to scare the protagonist. Once again, the extras are commenting on how the team can adapt to certain circumstances, allowing their other members to attack. One of the protagonist's daggers is spinning like a Beyblade on the boy's shield, who remains calm while stopping the dagger. With that, the girl with red hair asks to go attack Kai, and the muscular one allows it. Moreover, whenever a member in front is stopped by some damage, another appears to replace them at an absurd speed. With that, the girl attacks with all her strength towards the hero's group, who manages to dodge easily. The inspector is surprised by Team Falcon, as she had never seen them fight. She only knew of their existence. Lu Jun explains to the girl that although their levels are not high, they still possess high-level talents and equipment. Back in the fight, the hero retreats, asking for his weapon to return while thinking about the work he will have to do to defeat them due to their teamwork. With just a sincere exchange of blows between both sides, the protagonist managed to feel true fear. To end things, Team Vulcan apparently brought a magnetic stone to the battle as well. But one of the men realizes that the swords are not being controlled, and that this time it was completely ineffective. Then Su asks if the protagonist's group tampered with their weapons, and our hero responds that it was obvious they would come prepared. One day before the match, they are gathered because Kai had kept something that could help them with the magnetic stone. The protagonist, jumping up, will show Su Fio that regardless of teamwork, everyone will fall before him. With that, bursts of attacks begin to hit some of their opponents, and his plan is to make his daggers chase those people for some time. Returning to the inspector, she is surprised because she did not expect Kaio to find a way to combat magnetism in such a short time. Back in the fight, the hero orders his friends to attack because there isn't much time to hold his ability. Zhui will be the first to demonstrate his strength, asking them to witness his feats. He managed to deliver an attack, but it was not enough to hit anyone, as they managed to dodge. While he was distracted looking for his enemies, someone appears attacking from behind. Kai, noticing that his friend would be hit, tries to defend her and succeeds. However, what he did not expect is that this was part of Su's plan to attack him head-on. Then Kbum turns to where the blow came from and warns the girl that by trying to catch him off guard, she will suffer the consequences. At the moment he charges forward, a boy appears to defend his blow while asking the girl with red hair to go help another person on the team. The man knows he cannot underestimate the muscular one, and the fight between those two only intensifies with each passing second. With that, Zhui charges towards the one with the shield, using his meteor attack again. Now on the other side of the arena, Juan is doing everything to protect his two friends who are being attacked constantly. What they did not expect is that in a fraction of a second, the drunkard would take his drink and change his behavior to something more aggressive. This allows the other two girls to focus only on the two now unprotected girls. However, Hu uses her rain technique to defend herself, and her support magic also begins to heal. With that, everyone starts to slow down due to the hail falling, making it impossible for them to attack. Our video ends here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye bye.